Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start with everything okay? Okay, report of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken in closed session, but we need to take action on expulsions, and so I'll call for a motion on student expulsions, resolution number 034.
Move the recommendation of the panel.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Pugh. Roll call vote.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong? Aye. Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. Now I need a motion on student expulsion resolution number 035.
Move recommendation of the panel.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong? Aye. Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. And student expulsions resolution number 036.
Move recommendation of the panel.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. Student expulsions resolution number 039.
Move to accept the stipulation.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. And last one, student expulsions resolution number 040.
Move to accept the stipulation.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, seconded by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to C3, statements of abstention. Seeing none. C4, adjustments to the agenda. C5, board member request for information. Director Carl.
Thank you. There was an article in the Press Democrat today about the realignment that we're going through right now and in the sports with the various leagues. And I had an opportunity actually earlier to talk to one person that was in that meeting. And I think we have as a district some relatively important concerns there. One relating to not increasing our transportation costs, and second, the ability of various schools to, in different sports, be able to compete at certain levels. Typically in the past, we haven't gotten particularly involved in the league alignments, but there are so many different scenarios that are being suggested, and I think some potential significant impacts relative to some of our schools and their ability to be in an A or B level, where we, I think, do have a particular interest on behalf of our students. And as a result, since this final decision isn't be made until August or so, as I understand, it seems to me that if district office could have discussions with the ADs about whether there's any desire to have any support from the board in any fashion. If there is, let's bring it back to the board over the course of the next couple of months and see what we can do to help.
Okay. C6, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting held May 10, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Christoph, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Abstain.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Motion carries. And C7, approval of minutes of special board meeting held May 17th, 2017.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to C8, special presentation of the student board member, and that's me. Hello. And that's also Ross Thorson. Okay, I'm going to read some nice things about you while you stand here and they take pictures. So make sure to smile for the camera. All right. Okay. Santa Rosa City School Board is very honored to acknowledge the year of contribution to the board by student board member Ross Thorson. The board is lucky to have had such a dedicated student representative as Ross has participated in many Santa Rosa City Schools district initiatives and experiences in recent years, such as the Student Voice Collaborative. Ross has been a very active and engaged member of our school district community, and his interest in understanding institutions from multiple vantage points is commendable. This very dedicated, intelligent young man will be moving to Sweden to pursue higher education and his professional aspirations in late 2017. Ross is focused on relearning the Swedish language so that he can then attend the University of Lund in Sweden. Ross plans to study political science so he can eventually enter the professional field of diplomacy. We need a lot more of that, so that's good plan. Also, Ross is interested in helping start a program in Sweden that is very close to or the same as Sonoma County Ceres Project. Ceres provides free, low-cost, organic, healthy food and nourishment to low-income individuals struggling with major health complications. As with anything Ross does, we are certain he will pursue his goals and with resolve and thoughtfulness. In summation, the Board of Education is simply fortunate to have had Ross as a representative. He has a keen intellect, patience, and shows adaptability in response to many situations and concepts. Overall, Ross has been a wonderful student representative, and we speak for everyone that knows him when we wish him the very best in all future endeavors and thank him for his year of dedicated service. So, Ross, we have for you a certificate signed by the board members and the superintendent. And we also, for your trip, have the all-important Swedish fish. And I think in here is a gift card for a little store called Amazon.com. They sell everything. Okay, so since Ross will be leaving us, we need a new student board member. And so I'd like to welcome our new student board member, Maria Carrillo student, Luke Mott. And come on down here and meet us. It's a real honor to be chosen student board member. We have only one from the whole district, and so we welcome you, and we'll like sitting next to you for a year. We'll see how much you like it, but you can say hi to each of the board members. Thanks. Okay, now we have a special presentation, retirees. Mr. Lee.
There we go. Thank you very much. I feel very fortunate to represent the board and the district when I say thank you to our retirees this year. And I know that there's some folks in the audience I see who are, I'm not going to point them out, who are retirees. And if they'd like to at least just raise their hand and let me know that, let us all know who they are. Those are the two I saw. And perhaps at some point I will share, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to share the Dan Evans story the first time I met him, but when I met him, it was clear that he loved middle school kids and was all there for them. And that's been true 23 years ago when I first met him to the very day when I saw him trotting across campus at Rincon Valley to go work with some kids. So it'll be true to the day he walks out next week. So thank you, Dan. Okay, trotting, running, all right. And then Tori, I had the pleasure of meeting Tori and her husband when I was a high school student. She and Larry were incredible cross-country coaches and had an impact on thousands of students, both as part of the school and a part of the running community of Santa Rosa. And she was a teacher at Brook Hill and all of those things. So thank you, Tori, for coming tonight. And I'm sure that's not to hear me, but I'm glad you're here because I wanted to share that personal story.
I wasn't only at Brook Hill, I was at
Seal Lane.
Parker Terrace. I'm at now Hidden Valley. I met Calvin Lehman,
That should go on a t-shirt. Yeah, she's one of our elementary PE teachers who does a great job. So on behalf of Santa Rosa City Schools, to the two here, and to the 59 other individuals who have contributed a combined 1,244 years of expertise, time, and passion to Santa Rosa City Schools and its students, they've had an impact on lives of students, their colleagues, myself, and the community that will be felt for generations. So while we wish them well in their next endeavors, we cannot help but feel saddened by the loss of what they bring to kids every day in our district. So it's with profound respect and sincerity that we say thank you to those here and to all the retirees that have served our district for those many years. And to quote my mother-in-law, who's a retired Santa Rosa City School teacher, congratulations, every day will be Saturday. So enjoy that. Thank you all very much.
Okay, this brings us to C10, opportunity for the public to comment on agenda items or items that are not on the agenda. I do have a few blue cards here, and if there's anybody else who wants to speak and hasn't turned one in, now's the time. I will call the person who's speaking and then the next person so they can be ready so we can move through it as quickly as possible. You have 3 minutes. Just a reminder that if anyone has anything to say about a personnel matter, we ask you to refrain from making those sorts of comments in this forum as it impedes the investigation process and the normal HR process. So you can to approach somebody from administration, Jason Lee, if you have that kind of comment instead. Okay, so we will start with Mia Thompson. Maya. And then after Maya will be Steve Williams.
Oh, thank you.
There?
Yeah. Okay. Hello, my name is Maya Thompson. I'm an 8th grader from Santa Rosa Middle, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our dress code and how the students believe it should be changed. We've noticed that it targets girls, people of color, and kids that the staff sees as overweight. For example, one of my friends complains all the time that she is dress coded far more often than skinny white girls. Or that girls can't wear shorts that don't go past our fingertips, but guys are somehow allowed to sag their pants down to their knees. If they must dress code some of us, they have to dress code all of us. No one should be able to pick and choose. Does a girl's education mean less than a boy's distraction-free learning environment? A few weeks ago, one of my friends and I interviewed a staff member at our school to try to understand her reasoning for the dress code. She told us it is enforced to keep the school safe and was created to ensure boys in our classes don't get distracted. She also told us some of our male teachers could be distracted by what we wear. The only unsafe thing about the dress code is that it teaches guys that girls are these sexual objects that will change for them. It is also telling girls that our arms, legs, and stomachs should be hidden. How can we love ourselves as people if our school tells us we are less than human every day? The dress code needs to be looked at. Students should be able to weigh in so that it is fair to everyone. The week after our interview, one of my teachers stood in front of my class and told us that girls only dress the way we do to get the attention of guys. Who is supposed to tell him he's wrong if the whole school system is telling him he's right? I hope that you can help this situation, that the school can really represent Santa Rosa in a positive way. Next year when I'm in high school, I need to know that students are here in a safe environment. I mean, what needs to be taught is that we are all human and worthy of respect. How can that lesson be learned if the actual staff members are blaming 13-year-olds for distracting adults? When the school excuses sexualization of young girls, there is no way to teach the lesson of universal respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. Steve, I'm actually going to ask you to wait. Sorry, I know I called you next, but I'm changing the order. I'm going to change. There are two more people who want to speak about the dress code, so I'm going to just have them come up in order. I don't think you want to steal these girls' thunder. Okay. All right. Morgan, and then Kelly after Morgan.
Hello, my name is Morgan Berghoff, and I'm a 7th grader at Santa Rosa Middle School. I believe the SRMS dress code is sexist and targeting, and I would love to have your help to influence a change in this degrading policy. The dress code teaches students, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, that girls and women should and will change for boys and men. This dress code teaches students to label each other based on their clothes. If we are trying to make a safe, comfortable environment for students, shouldn't we also consider girls' comfort? Instead of publicly shaming girls for their bodies, shouldn't we teach boys that girls aren't just sexual objects? Boys at my school have personally told me I only wear shorts to get boys' attention, and SRMS reinforced their harassment by promoting sexualization of my body over the announcements, broadcasting dress code to the entire school, and making girls feel uncomfortable in their skin. I have been told by boys at SRMS that girls are sluttier than boys, used as an argument to support current dress code. They are using this sexist generalization to justify this degrading situation. Boys are never told that their bodies are a problem for anyone else. They are seen as human and very rarely seen as something there for sexual exploits. So why is it my responsibility to make sure boys can concentrate on their work? If I move my shirt over a centimeter, do you believe boys will stop looking at me? Boys will be boys is not an excuse. This dress code promotes rape culture and sexism. We would greatly appreciate your support to fight this degrading environment I am growing up in and protect future generations. Thank you.
Kelly.
Hello, my name is Kelly Fleischer. I am a 7th grader at Santa Rosa Middle School, and I feel that the school dress code targets females. Every day, I walk past boys who have their jeans halfway down their legs, but nobody ever says anything about it. On occasional hot days, I will wear shorts that might not fit the school dress code, and the first person I might see will say, "Dress code," or "Are you trying to show off?" I kind of just ignore it because I don't want to get into an argument. Now, I've gone shopping, and every store I've gone to, there are either shorts that honestly are too short to even wear at home, or shorts that go down that they are too long to even be shorts. Most of us have long arms, and it's very hard to find shorts the right length. Another thing is that when I put on my PE shorts, they don't even fit the school dress code, and they don't seem to be distracting anyone. I asked my PE teacher why we have to tuck in our shirts, just out of curiosity, and he said, because we don't want guys to be sagging. I didn't hear anything about girls in there, and they say that they want it to be equal, but let me remind you how many times we have heard, life isn't always fair, or nothing's fair in life, or not everything is equal. I hope you understand why I'm here today, and let me just remind you that while boys are walking around with their pants halfway down their legs, and girls are feeling insecure about their bodies because we don't want to be burning hot on 80 to 100 degrees weather. Thank you.
So Maya and Morgan and Kelly, the part of the introduction for today for public comment that I didn't say is that we don't engage in a dialogue about the things you say, and we don't take action right here. Just so like any comments, we listen to the information, and staff will take that back and take some action or investigation as necessary. But I do want to comment that I am so impressed with the three of you, with your speeches, with your courage, with your ability to stand up for yourselves and for all of us, and to say, right on, sisters. Now, Steve Williams. Good luck.
Yeah, I still didn't want to follow that. I will say, what an exciting piece where our students at Santa Rosa City Schools are taking real leadership in what needs to happen in Santa Rosa City Schools. It's very exciting.
Agreed.
I just had two brief little pieces I wanted to bring up. First, I wanted to acknowledge the Secondary Science Department of Santa Rosa City Schools. They did this unbelievable job. They are just amazing. They put on a professional development piece, and they all were there, they all attended, they worked hard, they got an enormous amount done, and they did it all on their own with no outside help. And I'm so impressed by our science teachers. The second thing is I wanted to acknowledge Santa Rosa City Schools. The district itself, Santa Rosa City Schools, allowed us to do that, supported us in what we needed, and heard our desire to really have that happen. And that's a huge piece also. We're beginning to take those steps of really working together to have the sort of science that we want for our students, where every single student in Santa Rosa City Schools is going to get rigorous, exciting, hands-on science. And I want to thank the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, Lisa Anderson, and then Jonathan Muchow.
Is there an overhead thing? So this is not
My name is Lisa Anderson, and I teach math at Santa Rosa High School. And I'm here just to talk to you about the process of what we're going through, trying to pick new curriculum. And as a teacher, we have become extremely frustrated. Funds were available to pick new books. We had an early spring date set of when we needed to pick a book by. It has been extended to the fall, where we're going to pilot books and supposedly pick the books we want to teach and use that. And all of a sudden, we get an email that says that they're going to talk about using an integrated curriculum. This is nothing that we have discussed at Santa Rosa High School, and this email is asking for a response within 48 hours. And the fact that it hasn't even been thought about is very frustrating for us. Right now, we're teaching the discrete curriculum of Algebra 1 in a year, Geometry and Algebra 2, and the integrated math incorporates each of those each year, with each year being a little bit more difficult than the previous year. So yes, it's a completely different program. We are feeling that we are being rushed into making this decision. We piloted CPM this year at the high school level for Algebra 1, spent hours and hours and hours getting it ready, and we feel that all of a sudden they're wanting to change. We have never seen an integrated program, and yet we're asking to vote on something that we're not familiar with. So what you see right now is a rubric for evaluating textbooks. This was due on May 16th. Santa Rosa High spent hours filling out this rubric for our Geometry and Algebra 2 classes and the books that we want to pilot in the fall. Right now, we feel that none of this is being taken into consideration. Not only that, the piloting that is going to happen is still very unsure. We don't know if it's going to happen, how long we're going to pilot, how many books we get to do. Do we pilot all of our Algebra 2 classes? Do some teachers get to pilot 2 classes? Do some teachers pilot 1? It's very uncertain. And so we are just very frustrated of the process. We are also not interested in integrated, but that's a whole nother issue. But just the rushing of having to make this decision without information, without discussion. Most of the discussion that has occurred so far has been with the math department chairs and not with the individual teachers. And so we are asking that this not be a rushed process. We feel that we were rushed already this last year in doing the CPM. Another consideration is we surveyed our 9th graders who are either in Geometry or Algebra 2, so they are advanced. We had 85 9th graders from 15 different feeder schools. And so if we're going to jump onto an integrated program, what about our feeder schools? What about those schools who are going to, students who come to Santa Rosa High, how are they going to fit into that? You can't just jump in the second year because you've already missed stuff from each of the 3 different levels during the first year. So with that said, we want more involvement, we want more time. We want to go with what we were already talked about doing. We've done our rubric, and we would like to just go on with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan, and then...
Moko.
What is it?
Moko.
Moko?
Yeah.
And then Emily Lou.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Moko. I'm an SRTA member, teacher at Santa Rosa High School. We've heard the ongoing discussion and debates about whether or not our district has an attraction and retention problem. And our paper has, in this school year, said that we do not. And I'm here to state that I firmly believe that we do. Our district is currently making choices, and I believe that our choices are creating this problem. We are choosing to spend money on consultants and programs. That's a choice. We are choosing to spend $7 million on instructional supplies with many unanswered questions to staff members and only a couple of weeks to make large budgetary decisions. We're choosing to potentially cut the pay of teachers in the district next year. None of this is forced based on budgetary crisis. It is a calculated choice. I teach economics, and week 1, lesson 1, is that choices have consequences. We call these opportunity costs in economics. Let's think about these consequences. Since we have created a compensation plan that results in problems attracting and retaining Qualified, professional teachers, SRCS is now masking our problems by hiring interns. We have all seen the statistics. The average teacher does not last more than 5 years in the profession. Now we're asking people without any training to do this difficult job while also attending classes in the evening. Do we really expect this process to work long term? Will we have more retirees that have been in the district for 30 years, or will we constantly be training new individuals that have never been in the classroom? Do you really believe that all the interns will be able to step into a classroom and do a satisfactory job? I do not. This is not an attack on these people. Would we expect a doctor, police officer, or a firefighter to do an adequate job with absolutely zero training? Certainly not. But we're hiring 40 more interns next year and expecting success. That seems odd to me. While we plan to hire 40 interns, SCO only anticipates 35 participants to be ready to teach in the fall, so even our contingency plan is inadequate. I'm appalled as a teacher and a parent to hear stories of interns going into IEP meetings and not knowing what IEP stands for. I'm horrified to think our youth are entering a room where the professional has had no training on classroom management, curriculum development, or instructional strategies. So in summary, it is clear that the true opportunity cost of a poor and uncompetitive compensation package is this. Number one, we are harming our students in their pursuit of a quality education. Number two, we are damaging the reputations of our teachers. Number three, we are damaging the reputation of Santa Rosa City Schools. And number four, we're putting the district in an immense risk of liability. Unqualified individuals working with the highest need students on plans that will follow these students their entire academic career is sure to end in civil litigation. You may not want to pay now, but that means the district will pay later. Our choices are clear, they're reckless, and they're detrimental to the future of this district and community. Thank you.
Emily, and then Stephen Sanchez.
Good morning, good evening, members of the school board. My name is Emily Liu, and I am a graduating senior at Maria Carrillo High School this year. And as a graduating senior, I hope to voice one of the things that, when I look back on my high school career, one of the things that I hope to change. And that thing is student autonomy. I believe that academically ambitious students, by nature, are able to take initiative towards self-improvement. For example, I myself, when I entered my AP English Literature class this year, I had an idea of the standard of learning that I hoped to reach, and I had an idea of the quality of writing I wanted to attain by the end of the year. Such students have an ability to know their goals and know how to reach them. These students, often AP, IB honors students, they should be able to have more autonomy in their academic studies, given that they do have a track record for academic success. The school board should introduce a system in which self-disciplinary students may design their own curriculum and self-learn, of course with the guidance of a faculty advisor. I myself have found that often I disagree with some of my teachers in their methods of delivering information. For example, some teachers may believe more in project-based learning, versus I myself find that lecture discussion is more effective. And of course, this is taking into account that all students have different methods of receiving and remembering information. It is often inefficient for my peers and I to both adhere to a teacher's standards or assignments, for example, studying for AP tests, whereas I may not particularly be as effective in studying in their study guides. I may find that note-taking out of a Princeton Review textbook is more effective, and it's less inefficient. It's less efficient for us to go through their assignment as well as our own methods. And as a result, surely it is more efficient for all parties involved for students to choose a learning path that best fits them, and we can depend on already academically excellent students to take that initiative. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and though I will be leaving high school soon, I hope that you do take this action so that high school students in the future can benefit from this.
Thank you, Ms. Lou. Did I hear right that you're going to be going to Harvard next year? Congratulations. They'll probably give you a good amount of autonomy there. Okay, Stephen Sanchez.
Hello, excuse the allergy voice, it's that time of the season. My name is Stephen Sanchez, and I am a teacher at Steel Lane School, physical education specialist. I've just turned in 2 packets involving the following. I've enclosed duplicate copies of our most recent effort to continue the work of building a 1/8 of a mile, 220-meter track on the large grassy field that is part of the campus property at Steel Lane Elementary School. This effort is a petition that was circulating for a mere 12 days. We got quite a few, and now carries 107 signatures in 12 days. The project officially started in 2015 with discussion among the Steel Lane staff and then Principal Casa Enmark. The track project received unanimous support immediately. In addition to the 107 signatures, I've also included a few notes and memos which are included in the packet. A. Patricia Vasquez letter from February 24th, 2016 to Casa Enmark, myself, and Randall Hankins regarding names and telephone numbers of 4 different paving companies that are already on the Santa Rosa City School list for contractors. B. Notes from meetings with Steve Eichmann, Jim Morehouse, and Jerry Engelk, I'm sorry, Jerry, if I mispronounced your name, following a walk around the campus property from August 16th, 2016. Letter C, notes from a January 2016 telephone meeting with Steve Eichmann and Casa Enmark, stating that since this project, quote, since this project does not interfere with our overall master plan for the Steel Lane drive-around remodel, which we hear so much about, which I'm looking forward to seeing, it will be fine as long as you keep it under $45,000. The funding is already available, unquote. It has been noted by many resources, including our own LCAP goals, that our students need health and wellness activities to promote health and student engagement. Why not complete the job that began in 2015 for a Steel Lane track that will enrich our students' brain cell activity while they walk, run, and play health-oriented games around a new track? There are many schools in Santa Rosa that offer both students and staff members a safe, well-manicured, hard clay track to enhance healthy school sites. Please help us build a track at Steel Lane School. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to our D items and start with Santa Rosa Teachers Association report. Madam President Olkin Clay.
Good evening. Madam sounds so old, not being disrespectful, 33 and holding. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent, and Board of Directors. Well, May will end in less than 7 days, and June 2nd will mark another milestone in the lives of many educators. We are now in the home stretch for cleaning our rooms, checking in books, making copies of finals, planning promotions, and graduation events. Our hard work for the school year of 2016-17 is almost over. Will we go out with a bang? Of course. Every school year is marked with some kind of major event. This year, it will be the celebration of whatever made this the year for you. I know for my buddy, Dan Evans, retirement. For my new friend, Tori, retirement. It could be selection as the California League of Middle School Teacher of the Year, the naming of Piner's Library after Dick Latimer, coaching of the Marie Carrillo men and women track teams that won the North Coast Sectional. My niece is on that team. Our VMS, Odyssey of the Mind team. They won the state, and now they're back east competing in the nationals this week. Montgomery High School men's soccer team winning the North Coast Sectional. Elsie Allen naming their performing arts building after Rob Burt. And once again, Maria Carrillo High School marking its 20th year as a public school. Or better yet, marking the end of your public teaching career and moving up to the higher grounds of retirement. Whatever makes you happy, celebrate it. Honor. It has been a pleasure watching our student board member take in the joyfulness of being the voice of our students. Welcome to Luke Moat as the 2017-18 Student Voice. Did you go to Rincon? You look familiar. Do I look familiar? Yes. Great. Correct answer. A special shout goes out to, again, to School Plus for their $20,000 donation to Pioneer High School. Now that's strong school support. According to the latest report, we are in the market for over 100 new educators for the upcoming school year. I'm sure some of that is due to the 31 retiring teachers. However, that is 1/10 of our total staffing. I know everyone is trying to attract and retain our young, bright, and energetic educators. What can we do as leaders to solve this issue? Great question, Ola. I know our members would be more than happy if this issue, along with benefits, salary, and MOUs, could be bargained at the upcoming mediation set for May 31st. Teamwork, priceless, which leads me into Petaluma. I got a text and a phone call from Sandra, who's their president. And of course, with my words of wisdom, I said, unite and do what you have to do. With that, they united, and they're doing what they have to do. They are working as a team, and we, SRTA, give them our support in their research, their determination, and their push for equality in salary. I say, go for it. Once this is completed, and this is a teamwork process for us, we can start focusing on college readiness block grant, yay. Our LCAP, yay. The elementary writing and math units, double yay. The next generation science standards, and our special ed students. As we move into the 21st century, we must remember it takes a village to teach a child, a strong commitment to move forward, and a positive attitude to understand and appreciate those around us. For some sad but good news, this will be my last board meeting for this school year. My friend that's somewhere in the back, Will Lyons, will be standing up here giving a speech every board meeting. I know we've had our moments in time. We've celebrated students, educators, classified, admins, parents, and the general community. I say this with a true heart that 2017 will be the beginning of a powerful working relationship between SRTA, SRCS, SECA, 75, and the school board. If we all keep our eyes on the prize, our students, we will be able to conquer the world of education. And now for my words of wisdom. Things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter the least. Joanne Wolfgang. And if I had a handheld mic, I would pull an Obama. But since I don't, you know what I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
As my favorite counselor, Dan Evans, would say, peace out.
Ola? So we thought you had one more meeting, and so we have a special presentation planned for you on the 14th. So even though you're not going to be speaking for SRT on that day, we hope you could come to the meeting for that purpose, if you could. I'm not kidding. So could you come back just one more time?
I'll come and speak one more time, but it's going to cost.
Okay. That we can negotiate. Directly. You and I.
Okay.
All right. Okay. CSEA, is Tammy here? She went home. She wasn't here. Oh. Superintendent report.
Good evening, everybody. When people ask me what I want for our students, I tell them that I want each student to be able to dream big, persevere, and thrive. Dream big no matter their circumstances in life. Persevere because education should challenge them, and thrive because they are nourished and supported. I believe Santa Rosa City Schools is the place where our children can do that. Let's take a look at some highlights from our district. Santa Rosa City School District welcomes more than 16,000 students to our 26 schools, 10 elementary, 5 middle, 5 high schools, and 1 continuation high. We also have 5 different dependent charter schools, including French and Spanish immersion, a charter school for the arts, and a nationally recognized accelerated charter school. Our district goals include providing teaching and learning to graduate students who are ready for college and career. We have career technical education programs that are evolving to meet 21st century needs, magnet programs that partner with our local junior college and university, an award-winning high school arts program, and international baccalaureate program. Our 900 educators at all grade levels are transitioning to the California Common Core standards and next generation science standards, collaborating on curriculum design to provide more critical thinking and creativity in the classroom. Santa Rosa City Schools' graduation rate is increasing, up more than 3% from last year. That's 1% higher than the county average and 2% higher than the state average. Each of our high schools now has a college and career center and a dedicated counselor focused on connecting our students to resources and opportunities after high school. One way to measure success is to notice the large increase in the number of our students who filled out financial aid forms for college. We saw a 19% increase in 1 year. Experts say a 4% increase is considered large. The latest figures from the class of 2016 show that many of our students who chose to go to college received grants and scholarships. 1,600 seniors reported receiving over $1 million in grants and nearly $2.5 million in scholarships. A second district goal is to increase student wellness and family engagement. Learning begins with healthy students and families. We partner with community organizations to provide services that go beyond academics, such as parent education, health services, and counseling. Bilingual family engagement facilitators at each of our schools help families find resources. Our Child Nutrition Services Department is asking students what they like to eat and redesigning menus that are healthy and appealing. One elementary student took his love of healthy eating all the way to the White House, where he and his recipe were honored by First Lady Michelle Obama. Fitness matters too. Our elementary schools challenge their students to run the equivalent of a marathon during the school year called I Do 26.2. And 5 schools have received the America's Healthiest Schools Bronze Award. We are in the 3rd year of rolling out the Best Plus program to all of our schools. The program combines positive behavior support with restorative practices that hold students accountable and give them the opportunity to repair relationships. We are also piloting a mindfulness program at Cook Middle and soon Elsie Allen High that has shown early signs of increasing attention and decreasing stress. All of our schools began the year with a focus on attendance. Every day counts. Families are learning the importance of regular attendance and schools are supporting that effort. District-wide attendance is up 1.5% over last year. State money for our schools is based in large part on attendance. So this increase is important. This year, we began an attendance recovery program to make up some of that lost revenue and to provide a fun, enriching curriculum. Elevate Academy meets one Saturday a month at various schools. A 3rd district goal is to serve all students with fair, just, and equitable resources, including personnel, financial, and instructional resources. Our 1,600 teachers and staff have embraced equity and unconscious bias training, both in Los Angeles at the Museum of Tolerance and here with the help of the California Teachers Association. Our efforts to close achievement gaps among Hispanic students and English learners received a Golden Bell Award this year. But this important work is far from over. Our English Learner Advisory Committee is creating a master plan to guide us. We must improve outcomes for English learners and reclassify students as proficient in English. Our new SOUL counselors focus exclusively on that work and have reclassified more than 270 students during their first few months on the job. Our financial resources presented our most difficult challenge this year. Under mounting budget pressure, the district and community came together in several forums to bring the entire process into the open. We are moving forward with the budget and setting future priorities together. Another example of this inclusiveness and collaboration involves the budget for instructional materials. Representatives from throughout the district have created a new, open process to choose the best teaching materials, from textbooks to tech, as classrooms continue to evolve. Openness and collaboration is a priority as we problem solve and make decisions throughout the district. We are grateful for the teachers and staff, the front lines of our district, who bring their experience to these meetings and committees. Stakeholders have a voice here. We are listening. Our 4th district goal is to create safe, inviting learning environments and provide relevant technology. The bond money that our community approved in late 2014 has brought reliable wireless coverage to all of our campuses, new computers for teachers and staff, and thousands of student Chromebooks. They are bridging the gap between our students who have access to technology at home and those who do not. Our facilities master plan is guiding other improvements to keep our schools warm, safe, and dry. Roofing, heating, and air conditioning work will begin during summer break and will touch all schools over the next several years. Stadium lights, a high school field, and plans for classroom buildings are up next. In August, the renovated Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts will welcome students to a fresh, expanded campus. The building in this district does not only involve facilities. We have continued building relationships based on trust, respect, collaboration. CalTurn, which brings our teachers, classified employees, and management together, confirms our best intentions. Although some significant opportunity and achievement gaps among our students remain, together we are determined to eliminate them so that every student can imagine every possibility, no matter what. And we'll take every one of us believing in every one of our students and the possibilities that they may not even know are ahead of them. Their success in this district matters to all of us because they are the future of this community. And my heartfelt thank you goes out to all of us who have been working together to make that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My report, quickly, I went to 2 events. I went to the Burt Theater dedication ceremony at Elsie Allen, and I couldn't stay really long because I had a conflicting event, so I went to go early to the band room to watch Kyle Thompson's sort of pregame warm-up with all his students, and which I think is cool anyway, and sort of where all the magic really happens, right? All the teaching and preparation that went into the performance. And that was so fun to see the kids so excited and got to see their first performance. But it was really moving to experience any of that because it was an effort that was really brought forward by the students and staff of that school to rename that theater as a dedication to a dedicated teacher in our district. And then I caught some of the local Rotary groups' new second-year presentation of their New Gen Peace Builders program, which looks really cool, and I hope it can expand throughout our district. And I'm going to let Evelyn was there too, and was there for the whole thing, so I'm going to let Evelyn talk about it more. But it looks really neat. And with that, we have no board committee reports, but I'll go to board member reports and start with Ms. Director Sheffield.
Yes, I too attended the Rob Burt Theater dedication, and this really was a touching and active ceremony. There was dancing, and there was a marching band, and they had Michael Jackson Beat It and singing, and it really was a really wonderful and special way to honor Rob and his inspiration and dedication to the students that he had and the mark that he left for all of his students and on campus, and I really did enjoy it. It really was fun, active, just a great experience.
Thank you. Director Anderson.
So I attended the 20th anniversary of Maria Carrillo's opening, and there was a nod to I went to a talk by Pam Devlin, who talked about the history of the school, and there was a nod to the school board at the time, including Director Pugh, who provided a lot of direction for the opening, and that included getting input from the community about what kind of curriculum they wanted at this new school. And as a result, the curriculum was a scholarly program with a heavy art component. And it's interesting to me how tonight we're looking at a slide about the LCAP survey, and those qualities are still rising to the top as what the community wants. So I'm thinking that classical education doesn't go out of date. But it was a fun event. And I also went to Ridgeway and got to meet with a group of seniors and hear about what brought them there and what their plans were. And I tell you, the public media pop media is full of mention of grit and how we need to teach our kids to have grit. Well, if you want an example of grit, go visit the kids at Ridgeway, because they've got it. I also went to the Museum of Tolerance, and of course that's, as everyone will tell you, it's a super impactful trip, and not something you'll ever forget, I think. But it also was 2 very long days of traveling with teachers, and that was kind of great because it gave me a lot of opportunity to talk to teachers from all around the district about different topics, so that was quite enjoyable. And it kind of dovetailed very nicely when after I got back at 11 o'clock on Friday night on the next afternoon, I was at the New Gen Peace Builders projects, and that really brought the whole topic of human dignity from the Museum of Tolerance to a tangible, project-oriented focus, because this is our kids from our high schools who are doing very tangible projects like meeting with and videotaping our homeless community to bring a level of dignity to their existence and an understanding on our community. And then they're also doing things like raising money to clear minefields in Vietnam and providing the seeds so that farmers can have sustainable agriculture in Vietnam. So 2 very tangible ways that they're bringing human dignity to our global community. And I think that was all I did this month.
Director Pugh.
I feel old now hearing that the 20th anniversary at Maria Carrillo High School. I remember the groundbreaking there, the gold shovel, the turning over the dirt, and transforming that corner lot into something more than a pumpkin patch. And that was worked out pretty well, I'd say. I've been doing a lot of local things, but most notably was I attended the Agriculture Advisory Committee at Santa Rosa High School, listened to what their dreams and aspirations of their program are and some of their challenges, and then met with staff, and things were getting worked out, so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Director Carl.
You also, Evelyn, get to go to the Ridgeway graduation, which any other new board members, you ought to fight for a chance to do that in coming years. That is really quite amazing. So I think you'll have a great time at that. I had a chance to go out to Montgomery High School and get an update on what's going on out there. I had raised a number of months ago the need for us to get involved in the Prince Greenway as it relates to Montgomery High School, and there's a parent group that's been working on that, especially for the property behind the stadium, which potentially could be used for practice fields. And also the property that's right across from the parking lot, which is a biological resource. It's a creek. Isn't the most pristine one around, but it is a biological environment that could be an out of the classroom environment for all kinds of curriculum. And so there's been some interest there, and anything that we can do at the district level to influence that plan at the city, I think, is pretty important. Along the lines of attracting and retaining teachers, it's a constant issue that we obviously need to be working on, and we're all vigilant and understanding of that. Randy actually has had some pretty good success at Montgomery in filling some spots with some really talented people that aren't just talented in the classroom that they're going to be teaching, but talented in the arts and the musics and sports and in other kinds of programs within the school. He's pretty super excited about some of the teachers that are coming in, and that's pretty exciting. He's also excited about that the freshman class is huge. It's much bigger than was anticipated, and you know, it's a good thing. It's nice to have lots of students coming in. And what they continue to do with the students is try to really work on the concept of being part of the Viking family. And he said it was interesting actually this year with all of the graduation speeches that were competing, that every single one of them worked on that same theme, being part of the Viking family. So it was, it felt good to him, and of course that wasn't just his work because he's only been there a year. There are other people in this room that presumably had some impact on that. In fact, I think Lori obviously was impactful in that regard, and I think you should be proud of what's going on in that regard. Their theme next year is collaboration, and it's not just collaboration between the teachers, but it's also collaboration between the students. It's a very diverse population, and he says there's a sense of that diversity and a sense within the student body of how we can embrace that and collaborate and work with fellow students, and they're going to be trying to capitalize on that. On the facility side, Randy was very appreciative of Jim Morehouse and the efforts that have been made from facilities. He's very appreciative of district office services in that regard. They got a new head custodian this year. And of course, if you get a head custodian who's mentored by Raphael at Elsie Allen, you're probably in pretty good stead, and that's in fact what happened. And Randy and the staff there have worked on doing small little things that, frankly, he said, I knew we had an impact when I went into a class of seniors fairly recently, and a senior stood up and said, my school in the last 4 years has never looked so good. Did they notice? They noticed. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that obviously are impactful to students, to know that we as adults care about the facilities that they are in. And when they notice that that's the case, that's all the more reason that we want to be paying attention to that and doing the best that we can. Obviously, they have a number of issues that we've identified in the facility master plan with air conditioning with leaking roofs and various things. The interior classrooms in Montgomery are considerably old, and so obviously more work to be done in that regard, but he understands that and is looking forward to it. So it's a good trip. Look forward to the graduation ceremony out there, and Jim Haas will be out there again for how many years is this for him doing graduation? Like 20 years? At least, yeah, because I remember him doing it the first time that I went out there. It's always a fun graduation, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Director Fong.
I just want to appreciate at the end of the school year when the teachers are exhausted, how much difference they make in their classrooms, because they make all the difference in their classrooms from kindergarten to seniors. I got to see kindergartners. The teacher created within the framework for kindergarten a whole undersea scene it was amazing. And the kids were astounded, and they know a lot in the ocean, actually, for being 5 and 6 years old, all the way to econ kids at Pioneer who were doing a networking event for college and career. And we're talking about what the teachers are creating with community partners. So at the econ networking event with the workplace, SAY workplace coordinators, those kids are amazing. The seniors at Pioneer, they all, they knew what they wanted to do. And even if they didn't know what to do, they were still confident they were going to get to do something. So that was great. I know that MOT, Museum of Tolerance, we also brought a lot of community partners with us as well. And so I really support our whole village educating our kids together. We all do it together. So I think with that lens and that perspective, Sonoma County Library as well, their youth services director, my former student at Pioneer, is now that person, and she partnered with some teachers at Montgomery High School and was great, as we don't have library media teachers. I'm in school that's called teacher librarians is what it's called. So making more use of Sonoma County librarians, now that they have Measure Y money, would be a great partnership to continue to grow. So I thank the teachers and the administrators at the sites, and for them to have a good summer.
Director Christoff.
I would like to just remind the audience and community that besides our high school graduations, we have many middle school and elementary celebrations going on as well. I know Comstock's having an affair and a fiesta on Friday, and we would like to invite people to that and to remind folks that there are a lot of good things happening in the community besides our high school graduations. Thank you.
Ross, it's your last board meeting. Would you like to make a board report?
Sure, I may as well do this for once.
All right.
Yeah, I want to say a big thank you to everyone on the board for really helping me kind of learn a lot about how this whole system works. It's been really an honor to be on this board and to hear all the presentations, see all the decisions being made, have my vote cast. As for things I've done recently, the Pioneer Concert Band that I've been with since we restarted it last year, that's taken up all of my time for the last couple of weeks. We had a concert last Thursday, and we were in the Rose Parade on Saturday. So that's basically been it for me, but yeah, I want to give a big thanks to the Pioneer principal, Mr. Zolinardo. He's really been a great help all of my years at Pioneer, and especially this year. I've been really involved with him, and yeah, to all of you on the board, thank you for teaching me.
Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to CSBA and NSBA. Director Pugh, do you have a report tonight?
I think I'll pass tonight.
Okay, Director Christoff?
I won't. I will be try and be as quick as possible. We had the CSBA Delegate Assembly last weekend in Sacramento, and I got to tell you, I was very impressed. A lot internally going on regarding, the policy of leadership and leadership roles. A couple things are very important to stress. I want to invite my board to a Region 3 meeting that will take place sometime in October. I'll keep you posted about this, but this is a way to try and bring different boards together to talk about regional strategies and things that need to be done. Very impressive two-day meeting, and I've learned a lot. I've got a lot to digest. I'm going to go back over a lot of the stuff that's there. The website for CSBA offers you the publications that they've just put together. They're doing a great job on research right now. A couple of things that they are stressing, and I totally agree with them, is adequacy and funding. And we kind of lose perspective when we are here talking about our own particular budget. But adequacy, when you look at the bigger picture, California is somewhere down around 45th in the state in the nation in terms of per pupil funding. And this has to do with priorities. And so number one, you know, California's got issues with finance, and it surely is reflected in our day-to-day work here on the board. The other thing is the LCAP. And I've had an issue with this, and I have another person in the region. She and I are going to get together to do a little work on this. When you look at the state average per pupil revenue, Santa Rosa Schools is about $1,400 below the state average. When you think about that, multiply that by 15,000, that kind of gives you an idea of where we should be and what we could do with that. So it's very important for our state legislators to hear this, because they think, oh, you got a big chunk of the state budget, everything's okay. But in fact, that leads me to the other concept that was being promoted and will be promoted very vigorously in the next few years with CSBA, and that's advocacy. Because it's nice to have a legislator pat you on the back and say, thanks for your input. It's another thing for them to take some action and do something about it. So CSBA is going to be working very hard on becoming very professional, becoming very good at getting what we need for our students, and that is more resources. And so you'll hear me talking more about this as we go along and as the strategy is evolving throughout the state. So anyway, adequacy and advocacy are going to be the words I leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kristoff. Okay, well, that brings us to the consent items.
Move items E2 through 11.
Second.
E2 through 11, moved by Director Carl, second by Director Kristoff. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Kristoff?
Aye.
Director Fong? Aye. Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Member Thorson?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to our F items. F1, discussion item on the FCMAT management review of Santa Rosa City Schools.
Members of the board, we are presenting tonight the findings from our recent FCMAT report, and tonight we have Michelle Giacomini from FCMAT. She's the Chief Management Analyst, to provide you a summary, a summation of the findings, and to answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. And it's funny how your superintendent reminds you it's a summation, because she saw how long my PowerPoint was, and she got really, really nervous. I promise I will not be going over all the slides. I know that you can read, but for any of you that haven't or don't want to read this whole report, I tried to at least put the recommendations on slides, but I do promise not to go through it, the whole thing. My name is Michelle Giacomini, and I work for FCMAT. Some of you, I believe, have been here before when FCMAT has visited. FCMAT is called the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistance Team. I have been lucky enough to work for FCMAT for 15 years. It's an incredible organization. You may not always like what we have to say, but I promise we will always be honest. And so we do a lot of work around the state. The FC part of our name, the fiscal crisis, is the scary part of what we do. And I've never had to visit you because of that. And that's really good, because I have visited many of our surrounding districts in this area under a different last name, thank heaven. So I've started over as of a year ago, so no one knows who I am. But the fiscal crisis part of what we do is difficult, because it's almost too late to make a difference. The management assistance part is really the fun part of what I do, and the part that is about 90% of my job, which is getting invited to go into school districts, county offices, charter schools, and community colleges, and giving advice. And our advice is truly that. We determine a scope with our client of what they would like us to look at, and we come in and we give very independent advice. It is our advice. In fact, although we send a draft of our report to our client before it becomes final, I need you to know the only thing that we change is if it's factual. It really truly is an independent evaluation based on what we think and based on our experience around the state. We are a very small staff. We have less than 10 people that work in the field, actually. We come in with experts, and for this specific study that we did here at Santa Rosa City Schools, we worked with an organization called School Services of California, which is state-renowned for also expertise in a variety of areas, especially human resources and business services. And so we had a really strong team to give you advice on this one. FCMAT does do a lot of different things, and that's what's on the slide. I'm not trying to sell our services because we are booked out for a very long time. I'm lucky that I live in Petaluma, so this was actually a really nice assignment, and my family appreciated that because usually I'm never home, which maybe that's good too. So anyway, that's right. So this is what we do if you have any questions. So really, this specific study started back in 2016 in December with a request to us to come in and assist the district. There's a lot of different scope items, and I have slides on that, and we'll go through that really, really quickly. But I just want you to know that although we only visited the district 2 days, your staff puts a lot of work into assisting us do this report that's in front of you. We send intense document requests. We do a lot of interviews. It is a lot of work for your staff. And really, it's not something they're asking for, right? It's not like they're sitting around doing nothing else and having us come in and ask questions and cause all this extra work. But everybody was incredibly helpful, incredibly open, because I will tell you a feeling in this district, although at the time we were here, and I think it is getting better, you were incredibly understaffed, very, very understaffed, and people were doing a lot of different jobs, and they still are, that they're not normally assigned to do. Everyone was working hard, but everybody was very positive and wanted to see things get better in the district. And as a board, you need to know that, because not everywhere that I go do I necessarily have the openness and the honesty and the positiveness that I felt here, even though you guys are going under a lot of stuff. So you need to be commended for that, because it's really a big deal. We did come out with the final report on April 20th. I am here a month later, not because I'm lazy, I promise, but I was already booked on your board meeting nights. I would have rather come sooner. So the problem with any report, right, the longer that it's out, the more outdated it becomes in some ways. So when we talk about staff vacancies or different things, some of that might have changed. You've done a lot of work when it comes to balancing your budget and budget cuts, which I know has been an incredibly difficult thing here in the district. And I have to commend you for that, because again, I don't want to come back under the fiscal crisis part. So I know it's been difficult, but it's been very good for you. Okay, so the next few slides just really talk about what our scope was here in the district. And really, we were looking at the business services and human resources departments when it comes to staffing, processes, procedures, controls, a lot of different stuff. And if you read through the whole report, you'll see that. We kind of looked at a lot of areas, and at the end of the story, what you have is a 37-page report, if you count the appendices, with a lot of recommendations. Now, I'll tell you, if you read one of our reports, it seems negative, because we do not talk about everything that you're doing correct. That's not what we do. We do talk about what you need to improve on. So when you look through one of our reports, I never want anyone in the audience or the board to think that you're not doing great things, because you are. But that's not what we talk about in our report, so just understand that. Although there's a lot of recommendations, there are many, many good things that you're doing as well. And I try to pop those in where I can, but not really our protocol, so it sounds kind of mean. Okay. So let's go over the main points of the report. Like I said, there are many recommendations broken out by all the different areas that you see here. But we're just going to go through the executive summary or the main points and then see what questions you might have. You know, something I heard tonight just sitting here through a lot of the speeches and presentations just so far is the word collaboration. And, you know, if you look at the first bullet here, it has a lot to do with communication and working relationships. And I would say when it comes to business and human resources, collaboration is an important word. Not that people aren't trying to collaborate. I'm not saying that. I think everybody knows that it's important. But because of staffing issues, bless you, because of staffing issues and everything else, it's very difficult. So people are really functioning more by crisis and issues and what has to be done versus talking ahead of time, you know, having meetings, being able to have sit-downs. Those are, in some cases, considered luxuries or have been considered luxuries because there haven't been enough time to do that. So we do have recommendations and discussion on that because I have to tell you that collaboration, those meetings, those discussions are really, really important. It's a way to get ahead of the issues, even when we think we don't have time. And, you know, as we all know, and no matter what department we work in or what we do, that communication is just critical. So we do stress that a lot. I don't have to stress to you how much turnover you've had in business services especially. We talk about that a lot. A lot of those, the majority of those positions have been filled that we really talk about in the report. And I have to commend you for that. Because at the time we were here, I'm going to use the word mess, although it really isn't very professional of me, but you had a lot of open positions and everybody was doing their best. But as you know, when you're down that many positions, you can only do so much. So I'm thrilled to hear of the progress that you've made. I think there's a lot of good recommendations in the report, and now you have a blueprint of things that what you can work on now that you have filled those positions. So the thing is, it's up to you if you take them. Bless you. Poor things. Allergies are really, really bad. I don't need to tell you that you need to attract and retain the best employees, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an administrator, whether it's someone in your business office. It's critical no matter what. And I know that you are working really hard to do that. Really, when it comes to, and sometimes when we're busy, it's hard to think about even writing down procedures and policies and taking the time to draft those, but they're really, really needed here in your district, in these departments. I think they haven't been done because there just plain and simply hasn't been time. But I will tell you, it puts you at a really big loss, right? Because if that person in the position leaves and there's no written procedure or policy, we're in trouble. And that's kind of what's been happening here in Santa Rosa City Schools, and you know that, and that's underway to try to fix that. We would recommend that you're not going to be able to write every procedure down right away, so you want to start with the ones that really give you bang for your buck, right? You need to really talk about enrollment procedures, position control procedures, things that really, really affect money a lot, and then you start working down with all of them. As you train employees, that's the time to really also work on your procedures and policies, because as they're learning things, then they can actually be working on also helping write the procedure as they understand it. So you're in a really good time to do that. We talk about job descriptions. We looked at quite a few, little less than 20. Many were outdated that we looked at, so we have recommendations on that. Again, none of this is necessarily something that I wouldn't have expected coming in, because when it comes to districts that are understaffed and needing to do so many things, these aren't always the things that we focus on, right? But you need to for a lot of different reasons that we talk about. Position control is one of those systems here in the district that is so critical. As I think you all know, if you talked about budget at all, the cost of staffing, which is not just the cost of the employee salary itself, it's also the benefit piece and all of the rest of it. Position control is critical. It really helps drive the budget and make sure your budget is accurate. So at the current time when we were here, or at the previously when we were here, it's not current anymore, I'm sorry. Basically, human resources was overseeing most of the position control process because of lack of staffing in business services. That's something that you should be able to start evening out a little bit more, because position control is a really important check and balance between the two departments. The other thing I really want to stress for good budgeting is to look at the idea of balancing position control back to the budget on a regular basis. It seems like that should be simple, but they're kind of separate systems, although they're coordinated in the end, but that's something that somebody really needs to sit down and balance and look at. So I think you'll be able to start doing that as time goes on now with better staffing. We also in the report talk about some different areas of internal control areas that we just want to point out, or ways that you could possibly cut down some work. So the first one, reducing the review of checks, we felt there was some redundancy going on as far as review of checks before they went to the county that reviewing would get after. Again, that just saves some time if that's something that you agree with. Remember, you don't have to agree with me because once I walk away, I'm not going to know, so you don't have to agree with me. We also talk about credit cards and receipts, things that we think could improve. A little more can be done at the sites on that. And also probably could use purchase orders on some items more than you do. Again, not uncommon. I was just at a community college and couldn't believe the number of things going on in those same areas. So I don't want you to think that you're alone, not the local community college. But that's an area that we can all work on more as far as making sure receipts are turned in. Okay, we also talk about, at the time we were here, I'm sure that you have probably changed that by now, about employees being able to increase purchase orders if the invoice was more than that. There needs to be better check and balances. I'm sure that has changed, right? Yeah. There has to be better checks and balances in that area. Not just anyone should be able to exceed a purchase order or pay an invoice for more than the purchase order, or if the budget's not enough. So I know that you have worked on that. We talk about, we believe, not that we want to spend your money, but that you need better checks and balances in the area of accounts receivable and developer fees. You really, in a perfect world, you have one person doing something we think 3 should be doing, but you at least need 2 people for better checks and balances. As someone who does a lot of fraud audits and that kind of stuff around the state as well, that's part of that unfortunate other 90%. You need to make sure you have good checks and balances. Sometimes it costs money to make sure that other things don't happen. And other things don't happen always because people are bad. You know, bad internal controls happen, make sure that also that a lot of mistakes happen. So a lot of the fraud audits where things have happened and it looks like money has disappeared, it's really a mistake, but not good internal controls, and so things aren't found in time. So I don't want you to think that bad internal controls always means fraud. Bad internal controls can mean really big mistakes as well. Okay. So then we talk about budget development and things that you should think about improving in that area. I believe that you as a district already knew that budget development needed to be not so one-directional, more inclusive, more meetings. And I think that's an area that you have nowhere to go but up on that. So that's good. Budget development should be inclusive. Everybody should understand their own budget because otherwise it's very hard to hold people accountable for their budgets. You know, it's really hard to tell a school site or a department that they've spent too much money if they didn't understand what went into that budget in the first place. So that's something that you can definitely improve, and I know that you will. Talked about exceeding the vendor requisition amount. Because of low staffing, the third bullet on the screen, because of low staffing, there really is more review that needs to go into some of your information before it's submitted. We talk a lot about enrollment. We all know the importance of enrollment numbers, ADA numbers. So just talking about before those numbers are submitted to the state or to other agencies, make sure that there's better review of that data. One example we give is you have the LCFF funding formula calculation, right, for your revenue. That's based on ADA and CalPADS data. We would say, make sure that kind of information is being reconciled before it's being submitted, just to double check for accuracy. It takes time. But as we all know, our funding is so driven by enrollment and ADA and pupil numbers. We really have to do a better job to make sure our data is correct. And sometimes when we're very busy, it's hard to do that. Cross-training and backup, we talk about a lot for both business services and human resources. If somebody gets sick unexpectedly, and it happens, or somebody just one day doesn't come back to work because they have a very sick family member, or they just can't take it anymore, which I'm sure never happens, you need to make sure that somebody can back that position up. We should never be so dependent on one person that if they disappear, that we're in trouble. And there are a number of positions that we thought needed to have better backup in there. We did talk quite a bit about different things that could be sped up, like job offers, right? We all know that sometimes job offers are taking way too long to go out. You find a candidate, but by the time the job offer is made, that actually the candidate has taken another position. So we talk about some examples there. Again, not uncommon, but it's always good to look at your processes and see what you could do to make sure you are getting the candidates that you're going after. And like you have a lot of time, we talk about coming up with handbooks for your different certificated, classified, administrative, different units out there. And the reason we talk about that is there is a piece missing when you hire new employees, more information that they need so they feel better part of this district, better understand that the group that they're part of, the employees that they're working with. So you already have good processes in place with your forms. They're electronic when an employee is hired. So we do discuss coming up with a handbook and better communication to new employees. One thing that is huge and is a liability is your vacation balance accrual. So you do have rules on how much employees are supposed to carry over, and if not, they has to be paid out. And so you've had a very large liability the last few years, and that's really something that it's difficult to work with employees to make sure they take time off, but you have to because you can't afford not to. So that's a hard one. And I know I sound like I'm lecturing, and I am. I apologize. I have 6 sons. You have to understand, I lecture a lot in my life. It just happens. My husband, all the time reminds me I shouldn't be lecturing. But the high liability is huge to you, right? And so at a time that you are working so hard to balance your budget, this is really another way that you can help do that. The other thing is the way the employees report their absences. You do have an online system, you say it ASOP, is that right? ASOP to report their absences, but not all employees are really using it. So there's manual stuff having to go on, reports having to be compared to make sure the information is correct before it goes to payroll. So you want to make sure that that system is used a little bit better. It would save time in the long run. We also talk about training and forums for HR to work with staff, so they're better kept up to date of legal responsibilities and different things with discipline and complaint procedures and the different things that they have to do. You know, often when we hire staff, we do a better job training than ongoing, right, as things change, especially with our administrators and people responsible for this kind of stuff, because we're spending so much time trying to make sure that other areas are trained. But we have to make sure our employees that are responsible for grievances, discipline, different things, know what it is they're supposed to be doing so they do it correctly. So that's why we talk about that. And then we talk about automation, which we all know in a perfect world we would automate everything. It's a slow process, but there are a number of things that you're still doing with spreadsheets and different tools that I don't like. Just to be honest, that's not very professional to say it loud, I like it too. But spreadsheets are scary to me, especially in the finance area, because it's very easy to make mistakes. So whenever you can automate things and make it come right from your system, even if you have to spend a little bit of money to make sure that the software that you're using can come up with the reports that you want instead of somebody having to re-enter something into a spreadsheet, that's really, really a good thing. I can't tell you how many mistakes I see every week because of data being kept in a spreadsheet where a formula was wiped out, but it's such a big spreadsheet, nobody even realizes the field isn't there until the numbers don't match with something. So now that we'll go through the next 14 pages, I'm just kidding, on all the individual recommendations, but that's what these pages are. These are all the different areas I talked about on the report. Many, many recommendations, which I know you've all looked at, especially right before you go to bed, because it helps you fall asleep at night. That's when I find most people read these. But there are a lot of good recommendations. I do want to close before to see if you have any questions, just to tell you, though, your staff really worked well with us. And again, it's not an easy process because you have a lot going on in the district. So I hope that you find this report and staff finds this report and administration finds the report as a blueprint that can be used to move ahead. Most of these are probably things that everybody knew they needed to do that we talked to. It's not a magic bullet that we have, but a lot of times when an outside entity comes in and asks the questions, we hear things from your administrators and staff that they already know needs to happen. And I will tell you, in a lot of cases, that's what's happening here. But you have been through a lot of changes with administration and direction and everything, so it's often hard for your staff to make those changes. So I hope that you will embrace some of these recommendations and be able to move ahead. because I enjoy when I read the Press Democrat to not see anything about Santa Rosa City Schools. Because right now I live in Petaluma, so all I hear about is my own school district. But I look forward to watching you guys improve, because I can tell you already are. You're making great strides, and you should all be commended for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. President Close.
Well, I think you had one thing to say about the
Okay, I can say
payment
it
of
now.
the,
Yeah, I would say that now. So based on some excellent advice from our interim CBO, Ms. Caceres, sitting right there, provided some information to me about the cost of the FCMAT report. And since we are qualified, we are self-designated as qualified, there's provisions in that law, AB 1200, that the county office actually pays for the audit.
Can pay for
Can
the
pay
audit.
for it.
They don't
The
have
good,
to.
good distinction because of my
No, it's
negotiation
important. No, it's
skills.
important. They
Yes.
don't have to, so
Yes.
let's, yeah.
They've agreed to, though.
Yes, and so I had a conversation with Dr. Harrington, and he graciously is going to cover the cost of this report.
So that
I
is
wanna-
good negotiation
Yes.
skills, because he didn't have to say yes, so that's good.
Yes, yes, so wanted to let the board know that.
Okay, any questions, comments from the board? Director Carl, then
Thank you.
Christoph. and-
First, I really appreciate the advice to take a look at where we could get a reimbursement for payment. Thank you very much, Liz. And I appreciate very much Steve Harrington stepping up and doing that. It's every dollar that we can save is great, and to be able to get the quality of this report without having to put anything out of the general fund is a heck of a
Not a bad
deal.
deal, right?
That's a heck of a good deal. So thank you very much for this report. I've actually called it a blueprint as well. I think that it is, it's so clear and concise that it's very easy to walk through, and from an accountability standpoint, go and check, have we done this, and are we where we need to be? So my question really is to staff, when would we expect to see a response from staff and a timeline for implementation of those things that staff feels is appropriate, and then allowing us to have an opportunity to have that discussion with staff about anything in here that you think doesn't need to be done or needs to be done in some different fashion, or things that you don't see in the report that have spurred some interest and you want to see done as well. So what I don't want to have happen with the report is, 6 months from now, us go back and say, well, did we do any of this? I want to know what you think we should do and what the timeline is associated with that. Presumably it'll take you a little bit of time to do, but it'd be nice to get a report back within some reasonable focus. And I suspect that that's not news to you. I suspect that you've already had some of those discussions. And if you have some thoughts tonight, great. If not, soon would be great.
Well, thank you for the setup, Director Carl. Well, first of all, what I'd like to do is introduce our new Executive Director of Fiscal Services, who's sitting right there, Mr. Joel Dantos. And so as you ask that question, I know that Joel will be a big part, as well as our future, our CBO, who will hopefully be able to make an announcement soon, not quite yet, will be a big part of the movement going forward, including the remainder of cabinet. Because here's what we've learned. It is not just business services. This action plan, which is what it's going to be, is really about all of us working together. And so we have 2 days scheduled where we will map these recommendations out into actions and timelines. And so we look forward to presenting that back to board for input and movement forward.
Great, thank you.
Director Christoph.
Yes, I also want to thank you for the report. I think it's often very good to have outside eyes come in and tell you how you're doing. And we are a large, complex district. Bill had a lot of the things, he said a lot that I was thinking about, and that I would be asked a little more specific, to be a little more specific in the timeline, only because I know we've got a new CBO, CFO. They've got to kind of get their feet wet, and I know we're filling positions and doing some of this already. But would it be unreasonable in your mind, Michelle, to have, say, a timeline by August, given the fact where we are right now? I'm just trying to see what the timeline
A timeline
might
by
look.
August for them to tell you where you're at, but not
Yeah, it's
necessarily
just to kind of
expecting
say-
it all to be done?
Yeah, what's the plan in August in terms of timing? Is that 3 months from now?
If you're not expecting it all to be done by August, yes.
Yeah.
Asking for a timeline, where are you at, kind of
Yeah.
a status.
Okay.
I think is fair. I hope your staff doesn't want to kill me or trip me as I
Okay.
walk out. But just so, sometimes I think boards think it's all going to be done in 2 to 3 months, every recommendation. I'm going to tell you not going to happen. Timeline, absolutely, and seeing that some progress has been made, absolutely.
And then in that timeline, would there be priorities too? In other words, we can do this first and this second at that time?
So I've seen so many different types of action plans after a FCMAT report. I'm actually going to tell you a secret right now, which I don't usually tell, but you can ask us to come back within, in 6 months, and we can actually help give you an update as well. I don't like to recommend that because we actually do it for free. So it's a lot of extra work for me.
Well,
because it
you're
would
on
be
the
me.
record.
I'm sorry, I'm going to tell you, but I live in Petaluma, so it's okay. So you could but I would, for you as a board, I would expect your staff also to give you an update by priorities. What can we do? What can't we do? Who's responsible for it? That type of information. Absolutely.
Okay. And then my last question is it, in some cases, do people actually get somebody to help staff? Would you hire an outside person to do this? Is this generally done 90% of the time internally with our own staff, for example?
Okay, your staff's going to kill me now, too. It really should be done internally, because if you can't do it internally and build your own capacity, it does no good to bring somebody else from the outside to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
It's okay for me to tell you what to do, but now you need to do it.
No, I wanted to hear that.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
thank you very much.
We didn't even practice. Thank you.
Director Anderson?
Yeah, so actually my statements and comments and questions were along the same lines as what has already been said, but I loved reading your report. And I've been talking about it to people ever since, because it's the kind of thing that I just think is really exciting, because it's hopeful, right? And thank you for staff for doing all that work that you've already done, let alone what's coming. And to me, it feels a lot like a blueprint for a rebirth of the district, because it's the kind of stuff, coming from a management background, it's like you see how efficiency and timeliness and collaboration, it's the stuff that great organizations are made of. So for me, it was a thrill. And I noticed down in the appendices that there's a timeline for return
You'd already
in the
saw
scope
it,
of work.
see?
Yeah, so I was going to suggest that we follow that timeline. So
But if you don't call by 6 months, I don't know.
Exactly, and it sounds like we should schedule it as soon as possible, given your schedule.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
I have a feeling that call will be happening. Exactly.
Director Pugh?
Excellent report. Thank you for doing the hard work, and thank you to the staff that assist you in getting to the root of the issue. There's a lot in here about business and a lot in here about human resources. I'd like to add my voice to have you come back in 6 months, but I would like to have a quarterly report for the first year to make sure that all the systems are working correctly and are properly supported by the district. So that's what I would like to see. Some type of timeline, quarterly report, and your return. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was a great report, and I appreciated reading it and all your recommendations and how closely you looked at our systems. And I especially think it's really important for our district to look at making sure that we have processes in place instead of relying on individuals. And that's probably sort of being a victim of your own success. You have great people in positions for a really long time, and then people start to rely on them, and we forget to sort of document policies and systems and rely on those people instead. And so now it is sort of opportunity, like Director Anderson said, to do kind of a rebirth. So I thought this was a great report. Even better that we got it for free because of SCO. That was fantastic. I think in terms of follow-up, we can really use how we responded to the FCMAT report on IT as a model, because I think there was a really good follow-up to that. And Rick, you handled that. So that's a good model on how things went. There was a very, systematic rollout and very concrete timelines. And so obviously, I think you heard from the board that we'd like something like that, and that's a good model. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to F2, an action item, the third interim report for fiscal year 2016-17.
Good evening. I want to just take the opportunity to echo what we heard about the team's response to what we need to do. When she was describing it, I just kept thinking she's taking the words out of my mouth. That's what it's felt like going through the budget development process, which we're deep into right now. And people are tired. They're tired because they're working so hard. But you can still see the excitement that comes along with seeing a new way of doing something. And that's not a given. It's not a given that people are going to be excited and embrace change. And I see people excited and embracing change. And so I echo that. You've got a great team. When the superintendent introduced the new executive director, I realized I don't actually know his last name. And I think today I gave him a new middle name because everything was Joe here, Joe here, Joe here. And he was very receptive, and he clearly knows his stuff, and I'm very excited for you guys. I'm very, very excited, the team you're putting together and the work that's going to be done. So with that, third interim. And here we go. So this is a different component than you normally have in the budget development cycle that you see. So third interim isn't something that you've had in, at least recently. I don't know if you've ever been qualified before, but because we're qualified this year, we've got our third interim report, which is we're going to discuss what our actuals are through April 30th, and update some of our projected expenditures from what we saw at second interim. And it will be going to the County Office of Ed by June 1st is our deadline, and so we're well within that time frame. And we've talked to the county between second interim and third interim. They are happy with what we're doing. They're excited about the changes we're making, and so they're looking forward to getting this report, and they know we're in good shape. So as I mentioned, we have self-qualified ourselves as, self-certified ourselves as qualified. And so we put that question mark up in the air about whether or not we're going to be able to meet our financial obligations. And I want to be really clear here. It's not, this is not about us not knowing whether we can because we don't know what we're doing. This is because we have to make some decisions and we haven't made those decisions yet. And so that's what we're recognizing, is that we know we've got some tough decisions in front of us in the next year to make additional reductions. Those haven't been identified, and we're just putting everyone on notice that we've got some hard work to do, and we're going to be doing it. Which is very different from not knowing that you've got a rough patch of time ahead of you. So big picture, here are the changes from the last time we saw our budget, from second interim to our new third interim projected year totals. And as you can see, they're really very minor changes we're looking at this point. If we look on the revenue side, there are very minor changes to our LCFF calculation, which is a good thing. We would expect to see very minor changes there. We have some small changes over on the unrestricted and restricted side on the revisions piece. And so I'm just going to walk you through a couple of them. So on the unrestricted side, we see a decrease of about $126,000. That is all one-time mandate dollars. So our final allocation from the state is less than what we thought we were going to get at second interim, and so we update our revenue projections to reflect that. On the restricted side, we've got a little bit of good news. You see the $610,000 there as a revision. That is primarily, about $500,000 of that is for a college readiness block grant. And I think the spending plan for that is on the agenda for tonight. And so we received those revenues. We actually have the cash. We recorded it, and that's wonderful. And now tonight we're going to talk about how to spend it. And once that happens, we'll get those expenditures in as well. The $148,000 you see there of new one-time dollars, those are donations that have come through since second interim. I think there's a small grant in there as well. And so we update our revenues and our expenditures to reflect that best information. On the expenditure side, we do have some notable revisions, and I want to call them out. So you'll see there's some revisions to the special education budget. So on the restricted side, I'll go over that piece first. That's $400,000. That's primarily NPS and NPA, non-public schools and non-public agencies. So as time goes on, we update our figures. We take a look at how many kids we're actually sending out and where we're sending them out to. This is an update to that budget. And so it's reflected there. On the unrestricted side, it's related to transportation. And so it's a $582,000 adjustment that has two components to it. So about $200,000 of that is from the prior year. Typically what happens when we close a year is we anticipate what invoices are still due to us, and we go through a process called an accrual. And we set up this IOU because we know that we owe someone about $200,000 that we haven't paid for yet, but that invoice is gonna come in. When we received the invoice this year, we looked through our balance sheet accounts and couldn't find that corresponding accrual. And when you can't find it, you have to hit your current year budget for it. And so that's what we did. So about $200,000 of that $582,000 is for a prior year expense. The balance of it is current year. So about $382,000 is the current year budget adjustment. And I want to note here, this is an update to the budget that if you didn't have two part-time interim people, we would have done this at second interim. We should have done this at second interim. We were late updating that budget based on the best information we had at that point. And so I want to be clear, this is a budget update that should have been reflected earlier. It's not a new expense that's come through. The other piece I'll just note, since I'm talking about transportation, is we were anticipating $500,000 worth of savings from this year to the next, which we had been including in the multi-year. We actually have the amounts for the budget for next year now from the West County JPA, and we see those $500,000 worth of savings are indeed there. And so an assumption that we had been making in our multi-year is now really truly going to be a good solid part of our budget development process. And so that's good news for us. Let's see, a couple of other pieces just on the restricted side. You'll notice the carryover that was posted, about $880,000. About $680,000 of that is for the educator effectiveness grant we received. We're going to we spent some of that last year, we're spending more of it this year, and we will still have carryover into the new year. It's just carryover that we were a little late in posting. Typically, carryover gets posted in time for first interim. So again, you have interim part-time CBO and interim part-time Director of Fiscal Services, and so we're posting it now. But we do expect some of that to carry over into the new year. On the net adjustments piece, the only one not on the net adjustments piece, on the $880,000 I mentioned, about $680 is for the educator effectiveness. The balance of it was for local donations. So it was a nice little combination there. And so it's nice when people get to spend the local donations that come through, and so they're doing that now. That $200,000 is not money I would expect would carry over one more time. I think they really truly are going to spend that this year. Here we just see sort of the corresponding adjustments. So special education budget went up $400,000 for NPS, NPA, and so we have to increase the contribution for it because we didn't receive an increase in state or federal revenue to cover those costs, and so we have to increase the contribution to special education. You take all of those changes, and they of course have an impact to our bottom line. On the unrestricted side, we see a decrease of about $10 million to our beginning fund balance, so we end with about $12.8 million on the unrestricted side. On the restricted side, we see a net decrease of almost 1.7, which leaves us with an ending fund balance on the restricted side of about $900,000. That $900,000 includes the $500,000 of the new CTE block grant dollars that we received that you'll be discussing later on today. Combined, our ending fund balance is about $13.7 million. Here I've sort of spelled out the components of the ending fund balance. And you can see we will meet our 3% reserve. The second to the bottom line is for economic uncertainties. That's our 3% reserve. And we'll have an unassigned, unappropriated balance over that of about $4 million. And so we will leave the current year in a good place in terms of knowing what's in our bottom line. Our multi-year projections have also been slightly updated from what we saw at second interim. Most of the assumptions are the same, with the exception of the statutory COLA has been slightly updated, the gap funding rate has been updated because we have better information now that we've had the May revise. And so with the May revise comes better information than what we had at second interim, which was based on the January proposed budget. And so we go ahead and we make those updates. On the expenditure side, not too much is changing here. I would note the one item that I did that was the most significant change was the special education contribution for the current year. It's now at $13.2 million, which is still less than where we were last year. And we can see we're anticipating that it's going to continue to grow over the next couple of years, and Mr. Mazzara is working really hard on maintaining and controlling that growth in the special education dollars. We had a great conversation today about it. CalSTRS, CalPERS rates, we include those at the bottom, both in percentages and dollar amounts. It's not always easy to think in one or the other, and we think by providing you both the percentages so that you can see the actual rates going up, as well as the dollar amount that translates to, is just something we need to keep front and center because it's not going away. One piece that I want to stress about the PERS and STRS contributions from the employer is that we hear the state remind us that with the new funding formula, the promise is to get us back to where we were in 2008 by 2021. Right? And that's accurate in terms of dollars, in terms of revenue. They're getting us back to where we would have been had we not endured those years of cuts. So that's a fair statement. The part that it leaves out that we need to stress and remind ourselves of is that while the revenue piece grows as it should have grown, they've given us a new bill to pay that we didn't have to pay in 2008. Those STRS and PERS dollars that the contributions that we're making were not at this level. And so it's one thing to get us back to the revenue piece, the revenue that we should have been receiving, but it's another thing to lose the purchasing power that we are losing. So we're not able to spend the money the way we otherwise would have because we have a brand new bill, and it's not a small one. It's not a small one by any stretch of the imagination. When we take all of those assumptions together, we can update our revenues, we can update our expenditures, and they just follow what we typically expect. One of the assumptions I'm realizing I didn't note on the expenditure side is negotiated increases. We never include negotiated increases into our multi-year projections. We don't assume them. We will include them once they're actually negotiated. So once a TA is approved by both the bargaining unit and the board, then we go ahead and insert them into the multi-year. Before that, we don't make assumptions. We can't be speculative that way. So in looking at our bottom line, we do, of course, as I noted earlier, meet our 3% reserve in the current year. And based on the really hard work and the exceptionally hard decisions that were made about next year's budget, we will, of course, meet our 3% reserve next year as well. 18-19 is where then we have another challenge. At this point, it's looking like we would have to find about or identify about $5 million worth of reductions. We know, of course, the budget isn't done. We have the May revised budget, but we don't have a budget act. And so we have to wait on that. And I want to just point out one thing about the May revise that would impact the bottom line, at least on a temporary basis. there are dollars that are allocated or mentioned in the May revise. They're one-time dollars that for us would translate to about $2.4 million. So $2.4 million that are included in the May revise, which sounds wonderful. It's one-time monies, but I will take one-time monies over no-time monies on any day. The funny thing about the way they're mentioned or the way it's written into the May revise budget is that the intention isn't to give them to us in the next year. So in the 17-18 May revise, there are dollars that are mentioned, but they're not going to be provided to us until 18-19, the very end of 18-19, in May of 2019. So maybe we'll get about $2.4 million more of one-time dollars in May of 2019, which would impact that bottom line. So we've included none of that in there because it just becomes so highly suspect when it's written the way it is into the May revise. But that is one piece I do want to just note, is that could potentially impact the bottom line based on what ultimately comes of the Budget Act. The Budget Act is the next big piece of information we're waiting for. There were some years, when I first moved to California in 2004, we would go through the summer waiting for the Budget Act to be finalized, sometimes into August, September, before we'd actually have a budget. Since they tied the adoption, the Budget Act to pay, they actually managed to adopt a budget in time. So we haven't had a late budget since that law came to be. And so I am expecting by the end of June, we're going to have an actual Budget Act and would then, of course, do additional updates to our budget. And then by then, we'll have a better answer on that $2.4 million of one-time money, which again, I'll take one-time monies over no-time monies on any given day. But I like to feel a little bit more solid about when it's going to come in. The other major piece here for our next steps is going to be what happens at CBEDS for our enrollment next year. Obviously, we rely heavily on enrollment and ADA. At this point, it's the best information we have available to us in terms of projecting that out. And we wait till the kids come and they're actually sitting in their seats to know how much ADA we can actually start to count on. And the last piece is the transition. You've got a new executive director, you've got a new CBO, and they're coming on, and looking forward to passing on the knowledge and helping out as much as we can. Like you've got some good hires, you've got a great team, and again, they're excited. They're excited with the budget development process, which is usually when it comes to budget development, I'm the only one who's excited in the room, but everyone has been just great sports about it. So you've got a lot of folks here to be really proud of. Under the leadership of the superintendent, everyone knows change is good and they're embracing it. And so you've got a lot of folks to be really, really proud of. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Great, thank you. Director Christoph.
Thank you very much. I always appreciate your reports. If it's possible, can I get a copy of your slides that you just presented? I would appreciate that very much. That's useful information. I had a couple questions. So I'll start with the CBEDS thing. In the past, we've projected enrollment in different ways. And I guess, I'm not sure if you have the historical context here, you have your own way of doing this. But would you say your assumptions, we're talking about assumptions, are pretty conservative at this time and regarding enrollment projections for next year? We're looking at declining enrollment. I'm not sure if I see that myself, but.
Yeah, so for next year, our enrollment figures are based on the numbers that the school district had put together before our arrival. So we had some numbers projected that were based in part on the cohort survival analysis, which is a good analysis to use, as well as the last demographic report that we had done. I don't remember what year. It was Shelley Lapkoff and Gobele who did it, and I think it was not that long ago. And so it was based using those two and using the more conservative of the enrollment numbers. Okay. And so we will, currently what we do is we take a look at the projected enrollment, and then we keep comparing that to what's coming in, the numbers, and the cabinet, I imagine, does this every single Monday. Yeah, and so it's a process of making sure then we're not overstaffed. That's one piece that sometimes that isn't always clear to us is with enrollment, we're making two adjustments, right? We're making adjustments both on the expenditure side for staffing, and so we're very careful about when we hire and when we fill positions, as well as updating the revenue piece of it to make sure that we're not assuming more kids are going to come in that actually come in. And being conservative means two different things on the revenue side and the expenditure side. And so we're conservative as we need to be on the revenue. We assume enrollment is going to be lower. And then when it comes to staffing, we make sure that we're not filling any, we just hold on to those vacancies as long as we can before we fill.
Thank you. I understand the idea to be very prudent in that area. Jace, did we use that same method last year to project enrollment?
Not with the level of attention to detail we are currently. I mean, really, with a fine-tooth comb, we're looking at every single piece of data we can on a very regular basis.
Okay. And then, the big talk at Sacramento last weekend was the suspension of Prop 98. How does that affect us? Because it sounds to me like not only are they not giving us the money, they want to take some back. They just took the floor and lowered it a couple of ratchets.
Yeah, I did. When I arrived in California, Prop 98 was considered a floor, and now it seems to be considered a ceiling, which is a very different way of thinking about Prop 98. So with the suspension of Prop 98, my understanding is that the governor was very narrow in his approach to the possible suspension of Prop 98. And so he took a very technical way of causing that, or asking for a suspension of Prop 98. So it's very, very narrow, and it's tied to those one-time dollars that I mentioned that he wants to push off until May 2019. And so, and for this very narrow type of suspension of Prop 98, he doesn't require a supermajority, right? Prop 98 has only ever been suspended twice, because it's really hard to get that many votes to do something like suspend funding for kids. Right, kids' education. It's just, that's a hard thing to swallow.
And that's 2 years in a row they're going to suspend it, right?
That they suspended it, yeah.
Okay.
And so I think the last I heard about it was they do think that he'll probably get the votes on it. So it's very possible that he actually would be able to. And so we have to think about how much does that matter to us, because these are one-time dollars that we're probably not going to eat. Like they're not going to be a part of the budget development process because they're just too shaky. And so we wouldn't plan on spending them until we have the actual cash in hand.
Okay, I'm sorry to belabor all, I will continue on. I have one last question. This is on the interim budget, third interim, on page 4. And it's kind of like a general summary, and it's the category of books and supplies, unrestricted and restricted, combined at 15 million. I thought that figure had dropped to 7 million.
That's correct. So currently it includes both carryover as well as the one-time dollars that we've put in place for the adoptions. So it looks that budget is much bigger now than it is on an average year because we have those two pieces in there, the carryover piece as well as the one-time dollars that were specifically earmarked for adoptions.
I'll study it some. Thank you.
Director Fong?
Thank you very much. I understood some of it. This is a rant. It's kind of, does anyone know why California we're like 48th in spending on education, and we're putting ourselves through all of this? Every fight we have is about money. Every question we have is about how we can fund stuff, and who's got a job and who doesn't have a job, and how many kids we have in sections, and how we do AP, and how we do CTE, and how we do TK. Why is that? Does anyone know? We're California. We're supposed to be this awesome Pacific Rim nation state. Thank you. There's no answer to that.
Okay. Director Sheffield.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. Thank you so much for the presentation. And copies of the PowerPoint would be very, very helpful for us. Just clarification in the, currently as the one-time dollars for 18-19 stand and as the budget is now. So you said that we wouldn't count on this until we have the cash in hand. It wouldn't be something that, come June 15th, the budget's approved, we still would not calculate in those dollars?
So I would not recommend we count it in based on the language today that's used in the May revise. So based on that, I don't think there's enough confidence that that's really going to come through.
Okay.
If the legislature does something different with it and makes it, if it ends up sounding like, feeling more like the one-time monies we received this year and last year, then yes, absolutely, we will update the budget to include it. It's just the way it's written today.
Right now, okay. So, come, July, this might be a totally different outcome is what we're hoping for. Okay, oh, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for the report. I wish we had more money, but I am very pleased with the, I think, certainty and clear picture we have with respect to our budget now. So I thank you for your hard work in that regard and working so hard with our staff.
I'll move approval of the third interim.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Pugh.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Member Thorson?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. back to order and move on to F3, discussion item LCAP preview.
Yes, good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. Tonight I have Sarah Crank, Coordinator of State and Federal Programs with me, and we're going to take you through a couple slides and also talk about the surveys that have been presented and some of the information that we've gleaned from that. So I will turn it over to Sarah Crank.
Good evening, thank you. So first of all, I would like to talk to you again about the LCAP process that has been going on throughout the year. So I just wanted to refresh you regarding who has been meeting. We've had our district committees. Those are our DAC, our District Advisory Committees, and our DLAC, our District English Learner Council. They've also been coming together, Advisory Council. And we invited our DLAC to join our DAC meetings, and we've also had meetings with SUN, our Stakeholders United Network. And one of the, as you can see from that picture with the district, those are all of our stakeholders together looking over the California dashboard, looking at the data, and discussing that in conjunction with our LCAP. In addition to district meetings, there are also site meetings. So when we say your schools, your plans, it truly is that way because all of our school site plans are aligned with goals on the LCAP. And as you can see here, our principals have meetings with their staff, their staffs at their site council meetings, at their faculty meetings. Their SSC meetings are consisted of representatives from their school site, from their parents. Everyone has had a part in this. The board, of course, has heard updates, and you are getting another one tonight. And then we also have our thought exchange survey process, which I will talk more about tonight and go over. So when we look at what the thought exchange survey has produced, this is a website that will go public. We're hoping in about a week. We're waiting for it to be translated because we want it to be equitable and accessible to everyone. There were 2,769 individuals who did participate in this thought exchange survey, which is a 7% increase over any survey, especially the one last year. It's a 7% increase in response rate. You can see from the demographics, 69% of the response rate was from our parents and guardians of students. Next was our secondary staff members. Our secondary staff members, our students, our elementary staff members, and community members. They shared thoughts with us, 5,717 thoughts. Some of those thoughts were responding to 3 different questions. Number 1 was, what do you appreciate about our schools? Teachers and staff, school atmosphere and culture, curriculum and programming, college and career preparation, student engagement and support. In answer to the question, what are some concerns you have about our schools? Facilities and maintenance did rise to the top. Funding and budget, concerns about lack of funding, bathrooms and plumbing, hiring and retaining quality staff, and curriculum and programming. Other thoughts were also one of the questions. What are some other thoughts you have to share? And again, facilities and maintenance did rise to the top on that as well. School atmosphere and culture, school culture of equality, teachers and staff, administration have done a great job. Curriculum and programming, more emphasis on math and science, leadership and district planning. So these are the actual district results. And when I say thoughts that are shared, we did not edit these, change them. These are exactly what our stakeholders wrote down and shared with us via this survey. As you can see, the number 1 concern are facilities. Slater Gym concerned about the roof, infrastructure improvement, repairs needed, maintenance of school. Funding and budget was also a major concern of our stakeholders. Biggest concern is about a lack of funding, art, music, computer, PE. Budget cuts were also a concern again. This survey did come out over the spring break, so around that time there were a lot of budget concerns about that in the public, and that is reflected in their responses. Bathroom and plumbing was a really big issue amongst our school's concerns. Paper towels, basic things, facilities and better maintenance. Hiring and retaining quality staff also came up as a concern. Keep all the teachers, great schools, concerns about compensation and benefits, sufficient educational support in the classroom, and reading intervention support also came up as a concern. Curriculum and programming, arts and music was a big one here. That came up quite a bit. Change of math programs, parents, they found it difficult to understand the new math program for Common Core. More variety and richness of elective courses, that came up as a concern as well. The writing program, these are just different concerns of our stakeholders. Integrity of the curriculum and the writing program continued. Hands-on field studies, special ed class setup, these rose as some of the top thoughts as well. Another big thing that came up was the Home Access Center and online portals. A lot of responses from parents wanted to see the use of the Home Access Center and that portal. They really wanted to see that teachers were updating it, and they wanted to be able to keep track of their children's homework. So that was a very big concern that came up and really rose to the top as far as what parents were concerned about and other stakeholders as well. Grades and technology, they would like to have updates on grades regularly as well. And communication, that came up as well, more communication about grades and progress for their students. And this, as I said, this website is going to be translated in Spanish, and this entire website will be available to our stakeholders for them to view as well. When we also look at staff training and support, this came up with unique needs of school. They want those to be understood. Teacher pullouts did come up as a concern regarding teachers who were pulled out of the classroom. For unique needs of schools, they would like those to be appreciated. Training and teacher pullouts, that as well. Days out of the classroom, again, that came up as a concern. When we look at homework, again, just in general, not with the access system, but they wanted consistency amongst homework, and that maybe the workload was higher than they'd expected. And as I said, these are their exact thoughts. So I some said excessive homework, some more homework does not equate to teaching better, etc. Again, communication came up. When we look at more school-home communication would be greatly appreciated. Lack of communication. It seemed at the beginning of the year there were weekly emails, and then as the year continued, those seemed to stop. Better communication about arts and music in classes. They would like to have a schedule for that. A website for their school. Our stakeholders thought that was important to have a website for their school that they could go to. Class size also came up as a concern. And again, as you can see, those that are starred did rise to the top as major concerns regarding what our stakeholders cared about. Class sizes, a 2-3 combo with 25 students was a concern. Class size, about potential increase when we're looking at budget concerns. So that was a concern for upper grades as well. And plans for growth came up. These were for some of our different schools here, larger student population, not enough space, school site, greatest concern, et cetera. When we also looked at the lunch program, 20 minutes, some of our stakeholders felt that 20 minutes was not enough time for the students to eat lunch, less fast or junk food, more healthy food. Some folks thought lunch was great. Feedback though, the meal is free, an enriched cinnamon bun for breakfast isn't healthy. Just comments like that. And as I said, I'm reading exactly what our stakeholders wrote to us. This is about as transparent as you can get here.
See it.
When we can,
Yeah, they can't see it.
Oh, shoot. Well, it's really big behind you, but that doesn't help. Okay, so.
If you want to look behind you, it is quite.
It's very big back there. Oh, so this is a grid that shows what rose to the top again, as you can see from our graph, facilities, and just regarding, they wanted a covered lunch eating area, curriculum and programming, a curriculum for computer science rose up, budding programs, positive reinforcement, it's difficult for parents to review lessons. These are some of the biggest concerns that rose to the top. Electives, change of math programs was difficult. When we go back to our summary of things and we look at leadership and HR management, what rose out of this was teachers and staff. Our teachers and staff are very well loved. Appreciate the staff in our school. Teachers are awesome, a good school with a caring staff. very impressed with the teachers. Staff and administration are doing a great job. Teachers are very important, et cetera. So that is a very positive response that regarding teachers and staff. And we go back to the summary themes and we look at
Kate,
oh, sorry. Okay.
I'm going to stop you right there for 1 second.
Yes.
So go to the themes that came up from all of the thoughts. What are the major themes that came up? It's the...
Here, I'll back up to that.
Yeah, back up to that slide, or back up to that part on the website. So it's surrogate.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay.
So it says summary themes up there. So
Yes.
what Sarah was dissecting by going through the website were each of these bars. These are the themes that came up from all of the thoughts and then the starring of the thoughts. So when you are able to access this, you can click on each of those bars and it's going to dissect it down by each of those, and then once each again for what comes up for those. So it just keeps drilling down to more specific information about what came up for our community. So I think what we wanted to share with you is, first of all, the power of what has been gathered in terms of information. I don't want to go through and read anymore because it's difficult difficult to gather the information like that.
Okay.
Just know that it's broken down from district, and it's also broken down into individual school sites. The thing that was very important for us too is that no thought was not an important thought. So we've kept all of the thoughts, just some were starred more and rose to the top. So in saying that, how does it now align or affect or inform not only the LCAP, but really a lot of the work we do in the district?
Obviously, what I see is sort of, what's great to see is that the work that we've been doing, the initiatives that we've put in place, are definitely being supported and worked. And it's also nice to know that we have a bond for facilities and maintenance, as that's a big concern. I also think for sites, being able to really drill down, as Diane said, and really utilize that information for their school plan and looking at their SIPSAs. There's learnings from this whole process as it's new, and I think, making sure that it gets out a bit earlier is one of them. Also, maybe not having it go over a time period during spring break, and also making sure that we have all of our stakeholders have an opportunity to weigh in, which means that we might have to take technology out on the street and go to different places. But just like, the feedback we've gotten from DAC, SUN, and DLAC, and this survey and also the other survey that was sent out with 17 responses, that we'll be able to utilize that in the LCAP, which you're going to see on June 14th. But I think most importantly, the feedback really shows that the work that we previously have had in our LCAP is the right work.
As mentioned, as we discussed at several of our DLT meetings, there was a concern that perhaps some individuals missed their opportunity to weigh in, and they were invited to directly email to our LCAP email. And from those 17 responses, you can see what was important during those individual LCAP emails, as you can see here.
So as you'll see when we bring back the LCAP on June 14th for our public hearing, some of the things that are different and sort of the same are an increased attention to the visual and performing arts. As you heard at our last board meeting, supported the Advanced Learner Master Plan, also in the English Learner Master Plan, are some of the things that you'll see being supported in the 17-18 LCAP. And then, as discussed tonight in previous board reports, looking at the best possible solutions, these are the decreases that were board approved. And you can see those decreases on the left and also on the right. And all will be reflected in the 17-18 LCAP.
As far as next step, we will have the LCAP public hearing on June 14th, and then it will come to you for final board approval on June 28th.
And I will say this, that as has also been mentioned in the last two board reports, we are very appreciative of the fact that we do have a director of fiscal. And so as we are finalizing and really looking at the LCAP, being able to make sure that the numbers are correctly in the right LCAP will be appropriate as well. So with that, I turn it back over to the board.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Director Fung?
Is the board going to see the LCAP preview again before the 28th, along with dollar amounts?
You'll see it on the 14th. So there'll be public hearing, which you'll have with...
That's the board meeting?
That is the board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if there are any suggestions or changes, we bring it back for final approval at the last June meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for the very thorough report. It'll be good to take some time to look at that when we can see it on our own screens, which is easier. But thanks for going over it in the detail that you did, and I look forward to hearing more on the 14th.
Thank you.
Okay, F4, adoption of elementary math instructional materials.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, members of the board. Tonight, with Director Dillon from Curriculum and Instruction, you're going to hear about the adoption of the elementary math instructional materials. And with that, I turn it over to Director Dillon.
All right, good evening. So it really is a pleasure to be here tonight to present to you for approval and formal adoption of the new elementary math instructional materials. You received a summary document that hopefully outlines the process a bit, gives you a bit of the timeline and the feedback that was received on the programs, but I just want to kind of review a little bit of that with you tonight. So this process really began back in February 2015 when we had an elementary curriculum collaborative. This was a group that is technically no longer meeting, but it was a group that met for a time to really talk about elementary curriculum. And out of that committee, we completed a survey. We sent out a survey to all elementary teachers, and this was in the February of 2015, in that time frame, really because we wanted to receive some feedback on what elementary teachers felt like were their needs. We know that the standards have changed. We know that not all of our curriculum has been updated to reflect the new standards. And so what did they see as the greatest priority? Out of that survey was writing and math, which actually you're seeing both of those programs come to you tonight, were highlighted as the two most important curricular areas to get new instructional materials. In that survey, we also asked if there were any suggested programs that teachers knew of and would like us to gather resources for so that we could review them. And so we used that information the following spring to kind of begin the process of a pilot and adoption. We gathered those materials, and we gathered more materials that were shared with us to kind of have a menu of programs to consider for pilot, and had those on display, both at grade level release days in the spring, as well as you can see in the timeline, we had two formal kind of more display days. It was important to make sure that we got feedback about which programs folks were interested in taking a deeper look at through a pilot. And the two programs that were highlighted to pilot were Everyday Mathematics 4 and Eureka Math, which is otherwise known as Engage New York. And those two programs came out of a survey that teachers received, where the programs that were displayed were listed and folks were asked to choose the two or to prioritize those for pilot. So we followed a similar format, as you can see, as the writing program you'll hear about in terms of piloting. It's important to put the materials into play and to see how they work with students and with teachers. And so those two programs were piloted this school year by a committee that represented all grade levels as well as many of our elementary sites. Out of that pilot, after meeting and teachers being trained, And using an evaluation tool to really look deeply at the programs, the team made the recommendation that for Kinder Academy through 5th grade, everyday mathematics would be the suggested program, and that at 6th grade, we would choose college preparatory mathematics. Earlier this year, we came and gave a board report to you, updating on math and science, and at that point, we did talk about why 6th grade was looking at college preparatory math, and that was because of the decision that 7th and 8th had made to go with that program district-wide. We felt that was important to take a look at, and the piloting teachers agreed it was a strong program, and a strong program to begin at 6th grade. So, I do want to say, just to share an appreciation publicly for the time and commitment of the piloting teachers. It is a big commitment. As you can imagine, they go to a couple days of training, one for each program. They have to teach multiple programs in a year. So they begin with one, they have to switch to another, and then because the pilot's a half year, they have to decide, how do I finish my year? So I want to publicly thank them because they were a great group to work with, and they were very confident in their decision to recommend these 2 programs to you today. So that's just a quick summary. I would turn it to you if you have any questions prior to consideration.
Thank you. Director Christoph.
Just want to thank you for the report and also piggyback on your thanking of the teachers. I know how tremendously difficult it is to put in a new curriculum and to pilot a new text and do all the work that's necessary. So again, appreciate the people that put their time and energy into that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your report. Now, I echo Director Christoph's comments. I know this must be a lot of work, especially for elementary school students. Whenever they have something new, they have to create a whole new universe of stuff that goes along with it, and it's just a lot of work. This is an action item.
May I make a motion to accept item F4?
Second.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Sheffield.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries, and so we'll move on to F5, another action item.
Thank you so much. Director Araceli Romo Flores is going to come down here and talk to you about the adoption of elementary writing instructional materials. With that, I turn it over to Director Flores.
Good evening. So as Kelly mentioned, the writing process happened first, and so we put out that survey to get some suggestions for writing programs to pilot. And so Lucy Calkins' units of study and writing by design were the ones that rose to the top, and those were the 2 that we agreed to pilot. At one of our informational meetings, we asked everybody that was there to brainstorm some of the desired components that they wanted for a writing program. So even though they didn't necessarily want to pilot it, they wanted to provide input about what they wanted in the writing program that we selected. So they actually gave those desired components, and that became our assessment rubric that we used to gauge both programs. And so we did implement both programs for a period of 6 weeks each. They were trained in both of them. We started off with writing by design, implemented for 6 weeks, checked in every 2 weeks to see how it was going and to get feedback from the team that was piloting, and then continued with Lucy Calkins' units of study. And I have to echo what Kelly said about thanking the piloting team, because it's a lot of work to, and a big commitment to get trained in the program and then to implement 2 very different programs like Writing by Design and Lucy Calkins' units of study. And it was a very difficult decision to make for us because they were so different and both had such great things to offer. But what won Lucy Calkins made that one rise to the top was the pedagogy, because the teachers were very adamant that that was something that they felt very strongly about. And pedagogy just really means the study of how best to teach. And so they really appreciated what Lucy Calkins brought to the table. Students had much more ownership. And the writing just was, there was a greater amount of writing as a result of implementing Lucy Calkins, and so that one just was the one that was selected. Any questions?
Questions from the board? I did notice that there were 2 teachers who piloted both.
Yes.
That must have been a huge amount of work.
Volunteered, yeah, it was great. It was actually great to have that too. That
Director Fong.
Thank you, Director. I did, again, thank the teachers because this is a lot of work and they really own it. And so I got to see Lucy Calkins in action, the writing, so powerful.
Yes. The children love it. We've heard from many individuals that they haven't seen this much writing in their classrooms ever. And so it's really exciting to see how engaged students are and the ownership that students are taking.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report.
Can I make a motion?
You may.
I'd like to move the superintendent's recommendation on item F6.
I'll second.
Excuse me, item F5.
Moved by Director Pugh and seconded by Director Anderson. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries, and we'll move on to F6.
Well, they're coming down. President Close, may I say something?
Yes.
I also want to thank the 2 directors, Dylan and Romo Flores. This has been quite a process that has taken quite a bit of time, but the time was worth it. And this is a momentous occasion. It really is, board, for us to do 2 adoptions, math and English for the elementary school. So thank you for leading the work. Thank you, teachers, for all of your work. This is a momentous occasion. That's all I need to say.
Why wasn't there cake? They were so just direct and professional and succinct in their reports that we didn't even know what a big deal it was. Congratulations. Okay. F6. Illuminate. Illuminate us.
You asked for it.
Light them up, Rick.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, Board of Directors. Tonight we're back again as the school year is closing to give an update on Illuminate Education and the implementation of the new student information system. To my right is Rand Van Dyke, Director of Data Testing and Assessment, who will handle most of this presentation tonight. But as we've talked about before, this has been a long process that started essentially when I came on board, in terms of the lack of a better term right now at 9 o'clock, complaints and unhappiness with the current system, and getting to a point where we could establish a committee to review potential systems back in February of 2016 with the ultimately the selection of Illuminate Education's platform for both our data warehousing and student information system. Through the course of this year, starting shortly thereafter on or about July 1, we started the process of the data migration, the data cleansing, and really moving to this new system. And as there was other thank yous given, I will give a huge thank you to Rand and the staff in the data department for the tedious hours of looking at lines and lines and lines of data. And also a huge thank you to those who participated in the process. Teachers, counselors, classified staff at both the district office and in the front offices who have assumed responsibility of the success of this implementation and moving it forward. I don't have the opportunity to go to every meeting, as Rand has to go to every meeting. But the feedback that I hear from various places is very positive. We know we have challenges as we move forward with any major system implementation, but there's a confidence level that we can be and will be successful as we get through the summer and into the start of the new school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rand Van Dyke to continue on and give us a current status of where we're at and what our next steps are moving forward.
Thank you, Rick. I don't think I really quite understood that moving the vast amount of volume of data, really millions of bits of data, and how big of a task it was. And at times it seems to me like we don't make any progress at all. What we've learned is taking our time, taking very careful steps to make sure we've moved 1 year completely, fully, thoroughly. We then change a single parameter, and we can now move another year, and another parameter, move another year. So even though it still seems at times it's moving slowly, we really are prepared to pick up the pace greatly. We're happy to say, I'm happy to say now, and I'll say it again later on, we still are on track for an August 1st go live. There's still a lot of work to do, but we have the pieces of that in place. On a weekly basis, either myself or all members of my team or some part of my team, we engage in a online Google Hangout essentially with the other members of our cohort. Remember, there are about 7 of us that are going through this process together. And we learn something about a new part of some new component. We fine tune our experience about that. We shared experiences between districts. I call it our sister district, Santa Cruz City Schools. They're set up like us. I've swapped some emails, some kind of procedural things that we do one way, they do a different way, even though we're the same kind of district. So I'm building a nice piece there to lean on and have them lean back on us. And we're growing as a team. We're coming together, and I find that to be quite refreshing. Most of the system setup is complete, and now we're looking at how we go about fine-tuning so that day one, the experience is exactly what a user needs, so that when someone at the front office is getting ready to enroll a student, there isn't a hiccup or a surprise or something that person can't do, that it goes seamlessly and smoothly. We've had there we go. The train the trainers. So we've talked a lot about training, and I will continue to talk about training. We've trained the core group of folks to be trainers. They've had their opportunity for that initial training. Then the classified group has really dug their teeth into this. We've met, we've practiced, we've refined documents. We've practiced training before we've actually gone out and trained. So this core group, they've attended the meetings. They've attended meetings not only during the workday, but they've come in and done after work hours meetings as well in order to be prepared. And the coolest part is they've stepped up to train their colleagues. We've got a couple of elementary folks that I'll give a shout out to. I don't see them in the audience today, but Linda from Burbank and Cheryl, I said I wouldn't forget her name. I've got 2 Cheryls on the team. They literally put hours, time on the weekend to put together their trainings to give their population, the ESOLs and the elementary techs, an overview program that was every bit as much as I would have been proud to have presented as a teacher. They really did a phenomenal job, and I really do want to give them that shout out today. And it's not just the 2 of them. We've got other staff doing the same thing at secondary, health, attendance. It's all coming together. Although it seems like it's a slow train, I think we're really in the right place. They even get excited at some of the kind of mundane things. You know, when you go through a web page and you're filling out a form and you hit that drop down and there's a list of stuff there, they get excited because they get to have assistance in how we determine even the order of how some of those pieces flow, so that when they sit down to do a registration for a student, the most common piece shows up at the top of that drop down. So I don't know what that is, but they've had a hand in how that gets set up. So we've had, I actually have to add one to the list of the SRCS trainings, initial trainings. We've done an overview for elementary school office managers led by their own folks. Same thing for the registrars and the counseling secretaries. I did the library and bookroom techs. The health techs and school nurses was another one I led. The counselors have had an overview training and an initial training on how to schedule students. And we're planning a just-in-time training, if you will, when we get back in August for them, to give them an opportunity to review how to train and then actually pick up some of those requests for program changes and do them right there, so that we can hold their hand through the process and really have them locked in, so that when they're really sitting down doing the massive amounts of changes they have to do before the school year starts, they're well in place to do that. Vice principals have seen it from a large, high level. They've seen some of that, how do you do a schedule change? And we are planning on doing a how do you tweak your master schedule training, again, just in time when they come back, when we're in the new system and they need to add that class or subtract that class or move it. We'll be there to help them out. Some places we're going to hire back an Illuminate Ed person to train alongside us, specialized area like the schedule changes, the master schedule changes. But in those places where we have the expertise, we'll lead the training ourselves. On the additionally for the, and then the assistant principals, they got their overview training by myself, and I did some tweaking of it based on my experiences with the role of the disciplinarian or the behaviorist in our district. For the certificator, the teachers, we've done a lot of head scratching on what's the best model, how best to implement it, and when to offer it. So we had our trainer of trainers at Pioneer High School. We have a core group of teachers that have indicated interest in being trainers, and we have set aside a draft schedule that gives us 57 different blocks of times that are 2 hours long, 1,710 seats, opportunities for teachers, and we can add to that depending on what the true need is. And that gives us enough opportunities to train every teacher in how to do attendance, which is a 5-minute training, and then how to do the gradebook. Not only how to do it, but actually get it set up. Somewhere between a half an hour and 45 minutes of training on how to do it, and the rest of that is an opportunity to actually roll up their sleeves and start building their gradebooks for the coming year if they choose to avail themselves of that opportunity. The final details to that part are still being worked out cooperatively between the district and SRTA, and I look forward to that part being finalized so I can finalize this training schedule. And as you can see, it's some stuff in June, and then again, a number of sessions that are just in time for the beginning of the school year. Classified is a whole different ball of wax when it comes to training. We have to look at job and what that job entails, whether there's crossover. For instance, the attendance techs oftentimes back up the health techs at the secondary level. So attendance techs need attendance training, and then they also need the backup for the health, and vice versa. Oftentimes our health techs are assisting in the attendance office. Excuse me. So we're looking at how we can make sure that we're training that particular group, and then make sure that the backups to those groups are trained as well. We've recently moved forward to start working with an expert in the attendance area to make sure that our attendance is not only spot on and excellent, but we're generating the maximum allowable ADA apportionment money guaranteed to us by law, making sure we've made no errors. We do have one piece of the process we're going to have to repeat, and that is physical signatures. Until we have reached the threshold where the auditors are satisfied, we'll be doing physical signatures, but then we'll get back to electronic signatures. And lastly, as we continue to fine-tune the training, the subcommittees are still working, giving guidance on how things are set up, giving guidance on when and what we do for the trainings. And it's my intention to continue training, not just after we're done with this initial piece, but in job, as I saw in the FCMAT report, we talked about training for HR and business services. That's critical for our front office staff at the high schools, middle schools, and the elementary schools. So we're going to build into their regular meetings continued training in the system, and we're actually putting together the bones of a manual to support them not only in the processes of Illuminate Ed, but in the practices that we need to do in those job positions. I'm really kind of with trepidation as a baby's about to be born. I'm really excited by being ready on the 1st of August. And it sounds kind of cliche, I know, but as Rick knows, he gets to hear me rant and rave, and I still remain really excited about this. It's been the most fun I've had in 27 years in education. And I really look forward to seeing this one come off without a hitch. And of course, we know there will be hitches, but we're ready for that. Any questions?
Director Christoph.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. This is the process for me has been it's been good. I'm very pleased with what we've done, especially compared with the way we did it last time. This is a good report. I appreciate it. I'm trying to catch from everybody how they feel the system's working, and I'm hearing very good things, and I know it's a lot of work. I know that for a fact. The one other thing that bothered me about eSchools Plus, not just the way it was rolled out and the way it was decided upon, and the fact that it was a very abysmal failure in a lot of ways, is that I felt it was an open checkbook. At the time I was not on the board, I was a member of the public, and I just didn't see any accountability in terms of the money that we spent on that program. We were always buying new software to fix something, and we never had a full accounting of that whole thing. But with this process, I think maybe the next report that we have, it would be really good to have what's been spent on it, what the initial budget was. I know these training sessions cost money, so as much detail as we can possibly get would be good. Anyway, just that would be helpful for me. Okay, thank you.
Certainly, Rand and I are planning on doing another update at the July, I believe, 26th board meeting, so right before we go live, we'll be happy to provide that information. And just in short, the implementation year for Illuminate for the student information system is zero cost to the district from a software perspective. There are costs associated with some of the trainings, as well as some of the trainings we've had to send IT personnel to for data integrity, that type of thing. So the implementation year costs are relatively minimal. Going into next year, let me back up just 1 second. The data warehousing called DNA from Illuminate Education is roughly the same price as we're paying for ORS through Red Schoolhouse, so that's a like-for-like cost. Going forward, after the implementation year, the cost of the two combined will be approximately what we're paying now. We're not doing massive customizations with unique software and in-house programmers, so we're using the software from the vendor as is and doing the customizations that they allow through their system, not our own customizations that we feel are best for our environment. So we're not going to have some of the costs that you're referring to, and I know exactly what you're referencing. But we'll be happy to bring that back as a full update on costs going forward.
Director Anderson.
Thank you. I'm curious about data security and how widely accessible our students' data is going to be throughout the district, or how safe is all their data going to be?
It's going, well, one thing with any company that stores student data, they have to comply with both federal and state laws for data security. So I am very confident that Illuminate will take every step to prevent any type of data breach that they can. Their reputation with student data is based on the security of it. If they can't secure data, they're not going to be in business tomorrow. There are checks and balances in place for access, just as there are in the current system. Access, in its simplest terms, controlled by user account and password with associated rights given to that specific user for the role that they do. As we know, and that's only as secure as people keep their own personal passwords. If we don't find them taped to the bottom of a keyboard or written on a whiteboard in the room or wherever we happen to see passwords stored on the bottom of a computer, for example. So that's something that we're certainly aware of, that we continue to work with in all of our security practices. We know that the data that we're moving on a nightly basis is through secure tunnels, going directly to designated spots that Illuminate, with access only by Illuminate and by us. So obviously, anytime we move student data, whether it be internal or external, we are very much aware of the risk that presents, and we're trying everything to mitigate any potential loss of data.
Excellent, thank you. And then I'm curious if you've done any parent testing of the end user, the parents and students. Have they had a chance to test this system?
Not yet. I say not yet. I have a couple of parent contacts, and certainly if I have other parents in the room that want to be involved in that process, shoot me an email and I'll put you in that list. The parent side of the environment is actually one of the easiest pieces to work with. It'll be much like eSchool's Home Access Center. It'll just have a different name, a different onboarding process. We feel it's one of the key pieces that needs to be up and running, not on day one, because we already don't have the Home Access Center up on day one for parents, because we like to, get them to come to orientation and that kind of stuff, so we hide the schedules. But in my feeling, it needs to be within that same time frame we normally do. We want to encourage parents to use it. We want to encourage teachers to be using the gradebook. And in order for those things to have their greatest impact, students and parents need access.
Okay.
So there are a couple folks we're already getting ready to shoulder tap and invite them into the conversation as test folks. Also, Illuminate's product allows us a great visibility. I can go in and become any user that I want to with my access level, and I can do the same thing for parents. So I get an opportunity to see exactly what parents are seeing as well. So I'll have a good front face of it. I've never had that opportunity with the Home Access Center. I don't have a child that attends this district.
So on August 1st, parents shouldn't be checking, tapping in to try and see their student's record or...
Not sure exactly what's going to show on August 1st. There's some messaging that definitely needs to come from the district out to parents. We have a kind of a notion of which parents are using the current Home Access Center, so we'll message them directly with whatever the onboarding piece is. I really do hope that on the first day of school, like we've always done, there's some basic information available through that process, but really the meat of it is once they can see their schedule, once they can see attendance and those other pieces, hopefully in the middle of next year, they'll be doing the registration for the following year online.
Thank you.
Director Fong.
Thank you. That rollout was a model of how I think we should do things in terms of taking time and crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's and involving staff. And so good job. It takes this long and we get that, so thank you. Just a couple questions. The DNA portion where there's the data, and how's that going? Is it working as we'd like it to work and people are using it?
I think it's the major players there seem to be elementary. We spent a fair amount of time at the beginning of the year kind of playing, really frankly, a little bit of catch up, because the migration from ORS into DNA and Illuminate bot ORS was not smooth. Some of the practices and procedures we had down cold in ORS, which we'd been using for years, we had to build from the ground up in DNA. And in the process, we've learned, and I've spent a lot of time with Kelly and Araceli, whom I see have left. We've learned there's some tools within DNA that we can better use than existing handwritten tools. So we're looking at how we can bring that on board. There are some isolated staff in the secondary level that are using DNA to its really major, its fullest. They're using the online testing. They've gone and done some training around that. And I'm looking at how we can leverage that in the future, because everything that we can do in DNA can be associated directly with a student, put into the grade book. It can be part of that component. It can be an assessment. It can be summative, informative. I mean, all those opportunities are there. We just need to continue to build that capacity as well.
Thank you. And as we saw in the LCAP report, one of the big deals for parents were how they were getting to see homework and grading systems on the current thing that we're using, eSchools Plus Home Access Center. So how does Illuminate serve that purpose? And is it still really up to staff about how they post things? Or if they can post things?
Well, ultimately, it's up to staff whether or not they're going to use the gradebook at the present time with present board policy. The program, from what I've seen, and I sat through the same trainings on the gradebook side that the trainers did, and I sat through it 3 times, 3 different types of gradebooks. Looks simple, intuitive, flexible, replicatable. They can take one gradebook and share it with their colleagues. So for instance, at a school, all the Algebra 1 teachers could conceivably put together and share a common gradebook, provided they all, agreed to the common standards. everything that's in the grade book, there's control over when it's shared, when it's visible by the students, when it's visible by the parents. It's really quite a powerful tool. They just need to take the opportunity to learn the system.
So in short, Director Fong, it's as good as the data that's put into it. So Illuminate doesn't force somebody to put data into it, but we certainly are working towards creating a pathway for people to use that tool.
So the opportunity will be there.
Correct.
And I would say that teachers will use a tool that is robust and makes sense and intuitive and easy to use and powerful versus one that is hard to use, antiquated, not working well. Yeah.
Director Sheffield.
And you may already be thinking along these lines, but as we move forward into implementation, August 1st comes around, it would be nice to hear back maybe testimonials from how, how do the users find this? How do the parents find this? But otherwise, I just want to thank you for the timeline of rolling this out. And I just think that it appears to be a pretty valuable tool that we'll all get a lot of use out of. So thank you.
And we'll certainly bring back that type of feedback after we're into the implementation of the new school year, for sure.
All right, well, thank you very much for your report and for all your hard work in getting this together. I appreciate your real focus on training. That's critical, and we look forward to hearing a report. And with that, we'll go to F7, action item, approval of applications for the declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
I'm prepared to make a motion on that.
Outstanding.
I'd like to move item F7.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Pugh, seconded by Director Anderson. Roll call vote, please, Lori.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, F8. Director Pugh's been waiting all night for this.
No, I haven't.
Action item,
I'm ready for it.
review and approval of board policy 6000 through 6159.3. Director Christoph.
Yes, I'm sorry. I know it's late, but this is an area that's close to my heart. I just had a couple of things on our curriculum. And we have, for example, social science, and an old poli-sci teacher that can barely remember that there are separation of powers anymore. But if I wanted to substitute a different social science class for, say, government, we teach it in the sense that it's prescribed by the state. We have a requirement that's in our policy. It says all the students will take American government for one semester. There was a time when it was a year course and you got local government and foreign policy in there and so on. But now the way the standards are written, it's just only the institutions and behavioral aspect of U.S. government. I think the kids are missing a lot, for example, if they don't understand what's going on locally. So if I wanted to substitute, let's say I developed a local community government class, could I substitute that for, say, American government and get credit for it?
If you can, you have to meet the standards. So the standards set up or the framework for American government. If you did it in a way that involved different ways in which to teach that, I mean, that could be brought forward. Does that make sense?
And then my other question is, we talk about engaging students, but we have certain requirements, say in social science again, but if a teacher was a good history teacher but wanted to teach a class in psychology, we couldn't substitute psychology for history, is that correct?
It's an elective. It would be an elective.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're pretty stuck on those requirements then. And so it's board policy, but it's state law.
It's law.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was two things. On our foreign language requirement, that's suggested by CSBA, and that's our policy right now. It says every student will take a year of foreign language. Has anybody talked about revisiting that concept?
We would love to revisit that concept.
Okay, I would really like to suggest that the foreign language teachers, those who are interested, get together. I have heard a lot about it not working very well. I know that in some cases we're putting, second language learners in Spanish 1, which is not correct. I know that there are students who are taking the class 2 and 3 times and failing it. Doesn't do a lot for them in their school experience, et cetera. So if we could revisit that requirement at our district level, I would really like to see that.
I greatly appreciate you bringing this forward because it is something that has been a topic for us as well. And the world languages teachers have brought it up in their department chair meetings. And so I would suggest that Dr. Guzman gets together a committee and we begin to explore this.
Okay, and then the last thing, and I'm so sorry, is that we have in our policy that students can take a challenge exam for any class they want. The young lady that spoke before us tonight was talking about, let me have a curriculum that works for me. It's a wonderful concept. But do we ever do that? Do we ever have people challenge a class and have an exam for those classes?
Since I've been here, I don't recall, but it is, they do have the right.
Okay, how do
Except,
we do that?
there are challenge courses, I know, formal challenge courses for CTE for the junior college, but I haven't heard, I don't recall anybody challenging a course by exam, to move on or to make that, have that count for their, in their completion.
Okay.
1998 at Pioneer, 1 student.
Is that on the teacher then to develop the exam?
The teacher gave a final, student passed it.
Huh.
It's usually
more
the,
work.
yeah, it's usually the
It was
final.
under teacher,
Okay.
Yeah, it's usually the
direction.
final.
Well, we haven't had a lot of demand for that at this time, but you never can tell.
But you never know.
All right, thank you. I move our last item.
I think we have some other,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
that's okay.
I beg your pardon.
Am I incorrect?
I'm ready to make a second.
Oh, well, I actually have something.
Oh, there you go.
Is anybody else? All right. Well, there are 2 small things I wanted to, 2 small inserts. One is that, let me pull up my notes on here. 6,000 B3, kind of right at the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, 6,000 B3.
It says ensure that a process is in place involving teachers, administrators, students, and parents, guardians for the development and review of the district's curriculum. And it seems to me that we also work closely with local industry partners. And so I think it would be nice to add some language that could include them, whether it's just something very broad like community, or it could be industry partners, or
I agree.
Frank agrees.
You have a thought, Dr. Guzman, whether it be industry partners or community? Community seems kind of broad.
Very broad.
Industry partners.
Okay, well then, that would be my preferred too, that maybe it would be after, at the end, after parents, guardians, would be comma, industry partners.
Okay, we will.
Yeah? Okay, but move the and, of course.
Mhm.
And the only other one is at 6112D. I can't find.
B 6112? We got 6112B.
Hold on. I have it written and typed in 2 different places. Yes. Well, that's not right either. Maybe it's A. It's A. In the, let's see, I think fourth paragraph, in establishing the daily instructional schedule for secondary school, superintendent designee shall give consideration to course requirements and curricular demands, availability of school facilities, and applicable legal requirements. There's so much talk right now about how we make schedules around everything except for appropriate considerations with respect to child development. And I think it would be nice to acknowledge that that's something that we should consider as well.
Child development, you mean the development of the child? How the child develops, is that what you said?
Like it would be, like we shouldn't really start school at 7:30
Oh,
for high
okay,
school kids.
okay.
That's, I mean, that's kind of
Okay,
like
so-
the most obvious thing. But we make schedules around all kinds of things except for, lots of things are listed here, except for.
Would well-being be
how
a good
kids
word?
learn.
Well, child well-being? I don't know.
Child well-being,
That feels broad too. but,
yes. Student,
Right,
just the teenage brain.
right. Well, so pull something out of there, Director Fong. Of course you-
I mean, it could just say student needs, or, I mean, that's the one thing that's missing in this paragraph, right? Is the student.
I think student needs would cover it. Yeah, I think student needs.
Consideration to student needs, comma, course requirements, and curricular demands.
Yeah, okay, so we'll add that.
Thank you much. Okay. Now, Ron, would you like to move the item? No? No? It's an odd group.
I move this with the amendments.
Ornery.
Done
You move the item?
with the amendments.
With the amendments, thank you.
Second.
All right. Moved by Director Fong, second by Director Anderson, heavy sigh by Superintendent. Roll call vote, please.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Yeah.
Director Pugh? Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries, and what? What did you just say? We're adjourned.